Everything starts under a heavy storm on a gloomy mountain peak. Several people lie defeated after an intense clash, leaving only two warriors standing. One of the fallen tries to reach out, completely drained of energy. Meanwhile, another man gasps for air, showing how exhausting the battle truly was. The weapon in one of their hands reveals the scars of the fierce fight that just took place. Baek Hwi stands his ground holding his sword, even though he looks completely exhausted. He is known by everyone as the absolute best blade among the vagabonds. The MC reflects that he earned this title after 18 years of wandering in search of his family's lost martial arts, but confesses he doesn't like this nickname one bit. Honestly, he thinks being famous as the greatest vagabond swordsman is kind of pathetic. Looking at the scene around him, the warrior wonders if all his hard work only led to this. After all, he still has a long way to go before turning his family into a prestigious noble clan. Because of this massive goal, he warns his opponent not to get in his way. The opponent is Namgung Chinyo, the young leader of the powerful Namgung clan. Unfazed, the rival states he can't let someone so skilled walk away from this. Namgung maintains a stance of extreme arrogance in the face of the challenge. Sighing, the young leader decides to step forward personally, questioning the point of all this resistance. He watches his opponent with an analytical and cold gaze, commenting on how absurd it is that the MC reached a level of divine mastery using only third-rate martial arts. Hearing this, Baek simply adjusts his grip, getting ready for what's coming. Raising his glowing weapon, Namgung decrees that he can't just stand by and watch his rival dominate everything and rule the martial world. Completely annoyed, Baek calls him trash and goes in for the attack. The two clash their blades with intense power, while the vagabond asks if this cowardly attitude is how the famous clan built its great reputation. The impact generates an energy wave around them, and the leader warns that today one of them will meet their ultimate end. And he guarantees with absolute certainty that the loser will be his opponent. Finding it funny, the MC mocks the preppy boy's talent for jokes. Right after, he launches a devastating attack, asking if the rival is truly confident he can win. Unable to defend perfectly, Namgung steps back, feeling the absurd weight of the strike. Taking advantage of the opening, Baek keeps pressing on with all his might. His focus is entirely set on overcoming this obstacle once and for all, maintaining an unshakable determination to honor his family's name no matter the cost. Calling his opponent out for direct combat, the warrior demands he give it his all. The decisive clash begins with a fierce collision, dragging on for 4 long hours of pure tension. Over 1,000 exchanges of blows happen during this time, showing that neither side plans to back down. Throughout this long period, devastating strikes capable of deciding their fates keep happening non-stop, until the MC gathers the last of his energy with a final shout of effort, landing an overwhelming blow that breaks through the young leader's defense with zero chance of blocking. Namgung's body finally gives out and he starts collapsing to the ground. Acknowledging the impressive strength of the best vagabond swordsman, the opponent admits defeat. In his final moments of consciousness, he simply apologizes for everything he did. With silence taking over the ruined area, Baek rejects that fake apology. Furious, he throws it in the defeated man's face that it's too easy to do all sorts of terrible things and think a simple sorry fixes it. But soon, the extreme overexertion takes its toll, making the warrior cough as he feels the heavy consequences of the fight. Without the strength to stay on his feet, he falls to his knees, breathing with extreme difficulty. Knowing his time is running out, he focuses on his one and only wish, to go home. Looking at the distant horizon, the MC reminds himself that he needs to return to the Baek Manor. His biggest goal was always to go back and restore his father's honor. Slowly, darkness begins to cloud his vision as his body loses its strength on the cold ground. Looking at his own trembling hands, he falls into despair, realizing he won't be able to keep his promise to return. A deep sadness takes over his mind, and he begs his brother and father for forgiveness for failing so miserably, bitterly regretting that he couldn't turn the family manor into a great clan like his dad always dreamed. Suddenly, a golden light appears, announcing that destiny is being rewritten to change the chains of the past. A mysterious force warns that everything will return to the starting point, so he can finally fulfill the desires of his heart. With that, a pair of childlike eyes suddenly opens up. Completely confused, the boy looks around, trying to figure out what just happened. An adult voice catches his attention in the middle of that spacious courtyard. Looking around, he gets a huge shock when he recognizes the entrance gate of the Baek Manor. The boy realizes that just a moment ago he was at the end of his life, but now a smiling man is giving him the name Hwi, explaining that this name means radiant sunlight, wishing for his life to always be bright. The kind man introduces himself as Baek Muryong, his father, and affectionately asks him to call him that from today on. Excited about the situation, Muryong encourages the boy to speak up, leaving the kid even more lost. The MC remembers that this was exactly how his dad looked back when he was adopted. At first, he thinks he's just seeing memories of the happiest time of his life before passing away, believing it's all just a comforting dream. But the patriarch gently asks him to open his eyes wide and look around. Following the advice, the boy focuses his vision on the scene in front of him, finding the entire Beak Manor family gathered right there in the courtyard to welcome him. A young woman asks the Lord if this is really the adopted son, and the boy immediately recognizes her as his mother in her youth. Right after, he spots his younger brother acting a bit suspicious about the new arrival. Meanwhile, little Yon cheers super excitedly that she just got another older brother. Analyzing the scenario, Beak is completely shell-shocked as he figures out he somehow actually regressed into the past. The divine message echoes in his mind again, telling him to go and fulfill what he desires so much. A new flame of determination ignites in the reincarnated young warrior's eyes. Looking at his mom with affection, he promises himself that if this is truly a real second chance, he will guarantee the safety and take great care of everyone in his beloved family. With that, he clenches his fists tightly to seal his own internal oath. Completely focused on turning his humble home into the biggest and most powerful clan in the entire world. Looking at his mom, the boy notices how perfectly youthful she looks. Besides her, his dad and the head butler Han are also radiating health and vitality. Observing the reunited family, he realizes he truly went back to time when he was only 8 years old. With this, the MC firmly clenches his fist, seeing this as the golden opportunity he prayed so hard for. Having all the knowledge from his past life, the boy plans to elevate the Beak Manor to the top of the martial world. Suddenly, everyone's attention in the courtyard shifts to the property's entrance. Hearing loud noises outside, the family realizes someone unwanted is approaching. In an instant of pure aggression, the large wooden gate is completely shattered to pieces. Muryong tenses up at the invasion and asks out loud who dares to enter like that. With that, the group of invaders appears, breaking everything amidst the dust kicked up by the debris. One of the men stomps heavily on the remains of the gate, showing a total lack of respect. The aggressive invader yells, asking if this is the Beak Manor, and demands the heavy debt be paid immediately. Analyzing the imposing guy, the reincarnated youth recognizes the dreaded Guak, confirming that events are repeating themselves. The invasion leader marches through the courtyard, declaring he came to collect payback for the Great Lord's actions. Thumping his chest, Guak reveals he's the son of the Hongjiao sect leader, and accuses the patriarch of taking down one of their allied factions. Confused by the situation, Muryong asks what this absurd collection is all about. The patriarch explains that the defeated men were cruel criminals who kidnapped innocent people, finding it crazy to be judged for doing the right thing. Not caring at all about morality, the invader shoots back that those men served his banner, and the attack was a massive insult. Because of this audacity, the entitled guy demands a very hefty financial compensation for what happened. The threatening tone leaves the family lord completely in shock at this blatant extortion. Meanwhile, the boy watches the scene in silence, recognizing the weight of that fateful deed. In his previous life, it was exactly during this confrontation that his dear father ended up suffering severe injuries. On top of that, the criminal gang looted what little the family had and completely ruined their prestige, bringing a total downfall to the manor's finances and plunging everyone into a life of hardship. However, now he clenches his hands, determined to completely rewrite this tragic script. Full of attitude, the boy takes a step forward, guaranteeing he won't take this quietly this time. The sudden interruption catches the invader's attention, while Muryong tells his son to step back immediately. With an expression full of distress, the father shows genuine fear that the child might get hurt. Reassuring the older man, the boy asks him to calm down and wonders if the patriarch already has a strategy to solve this. Giving a confident smile, the kid mentions he has his own survival tricks and asks for a vote of confidence. Walking toward the enemies, the youth reassures his family not to worry. The gang leader follows the boy's tiny steps, as the kid internally swears never to repeat old mistakes. Having to deal with his past life frustrations, he focuses on smartly solving the current obstacle. Changing his posture in the blink of an eye, the MC flashes a huge smile and greets the brute, calling him Big Bro. The extreme fakeness catches everyone off guard, leaving both the criminals and the boy's family totally speechless. Furious at the familiarity, the bad guy rants that he is already 30 years old and finds it absurd to be treated as an equal by a brat. Ignoring the guy's anger, the boy compliments the thug's looks, claiming he barely looks like he's hit 20 years old. The henchmen in the back quietly whisper that the boss loves being called young, even though he looks pretty worn out. Hearing the blatant compliment, the invasion leader gives a slight jump, feeling his ego getting massaged. Trying to hide his joy, Guak agrees, sweating nervously, and says his youthful beauty is quite famous in the area. Striking an imposing pose again, the bad guy praises the chatty boy's sharp eyes. But he quickly cuts the friendly vibe, warning that cheap flattery won't cancel out the manor's debt. Keeping up the mask of innocence, the youth explains that until very recently he was just an abandoned boy on the streets, sharing that he was almost taken by an evil sect before being saved by Patriarch Beek's extreme kindness. Hearing the sad tale, the Lord feels a huge ache in his heart watching his adopted son act. Finishing the story, the boy praises his dad's actions, while the henchmen confirm the cruelty of the mentioned kidnappers. The invader leader adopts a more serious stance upon confirming the wicked deeds done by his supposed allies. But he soon goes back to yelling furiously, declaring that only his organization has the right to punish those who use their banner. Disgusted by the cynicism, the old butler accuses the criminals of being dictators for covering up that kind of dirty crime. Immediately, the bad guy threatens the elderly man, demanding absolute respect and making it clear he could end him right there. Realizing things are heating up, the little vagabond jumps in, laughing to cool everyone's temper. Without losing the smile on his face, the boy suggests a direct negotiation between the two parties. Arguing that he has nothing to do with the main fight, the kid offers a precious piece of information in exchange for debt forgiveness. Finding the proposal hilarious, the invader gives a mocking smile, admiring the unbelievable courage of this tiny kid. With that, he crouches down to the boy's level, promising to drop the collection if the secret is actually valuable. The MC asks the man to pay close attention as he steps in to whisper the revelation. Shooting a scary look, the bad guy warns the boy that he will suffer a lot if he's making up lies to buy time. Giving a nervous little laugh, the youth states that a real man must keep his word no matter what. The invasion leader orders all his subordinates to step back, so none of them can hear the confidential matter. With the path clear, the reincarnated kid gets close to the enemy's ear, ready to drop the golden intel. Completely shifting his expression to a focused glare, the boy plays his final card. Whispering calmly, he reveals that there's a major spy planted inside Guak's group. The criminal boss's eyes widen, feeling a mix of shock and apprehension at that accusation. Asked about the source of the info, the boy lies that he heard the rumors while living on the city's dark streets. Projecting absolute certainty, the kid details that the traitor has a blue snake tattoo hidden on his body. The serpent mark is the classic symbol of a rival faction that specializes in infiltrating to destroy enemies from the inside out. Cutting straight to the main point, the MC drops the name Buck Action as the true culprit behind it all. Angered by the accusation, the leader grabs the boy's clothes, yelling that this man is his trusted partner and that everyone was recently searched. Letting out a soft sigh, the reincarnated hero patiently asks if the search included stripping the henchmen down to their underwear. The simple question leaves the brute speechless, realizing the massive loophole in his internal security. Grinding his teeth in pure rage, he finally figures out he might have been played for a fool by someone very close to him. With a furious roar, the leader shouts his subordinate's name, making the traitor flinch in the middle of the crowd of henchmen. Trying to play dumb, the spy answers the call only to receive a bizarre order to take off his clothes. With zero patience for stalling, the boss orders the guy to strip everything off down to his underwear right there in the courtyard. Watching the chaos unfold, the youth gives a satisfied smile, remembering the colossal damage the discovery of this traitor caused in his past. Absolutely furious, the leader points his finger, directly accusing Buck Action in front of everyone. Leaving no room for excuses, Guak demands he take off his clothes until he's only in his underwear. The henchman is completely paralyzed by his boss's absurd order. To try and reverse the situation, the guy begs for mercy, arguing that stripping in the courtyard is a huge overreaction. At that, the brute stomps his foot hard on the ground, making it clear that someone who is truly innocent has no reason to hide. Warning that he will be the only one looking, the leader yells for the subordinate to just rip his clothes off once and for all. With no other way out, the man gulps, realizing the situation has completely spiraled out of control. With that, a dark expression takes over the supposed ally's face. In a sudden move, Buck charges forward with all his might, pushing the other henchmen and telling them to get out of his way. Completely shocked by the sudden escape, the boss confirms the guy really was a traitor and orders him to stop immediately. While running desperately, the fugitive wonders how things reached this point, knowing he needs to vanish from there super fast. Sweating cold, he tries to look back to check how close the danger is. At that moment, a giant shadow covers the deserter, who panics upon realizing the boss is already right on his heels. The bad guy glares at his ex-companion with pure hatred, confirming he won't let him get away that easily. Wasting no time, Guak lands a sequence of heavy blows to punish the traitor. The dust finally settles in the manor's courtyard after the quick and intense chaos. Totally defeated and tied up with thick ropes, the spy can barely stay conscious. Thanking the family for their crucial help in uncovering the fraud, the leader decides to back off and forgive the debt for good. Keeping up the innocent boy act, the kid listens to the brute apologize for the disrespect shown earlier. However, before the invaders can leave, the youth warns there is still a small pending issue to sort out. Giving a charismatic little laugh, the tiny vagabond steps up to explain the situation to them very clearly. He details that catching the traitor only served to cancel out the old feud between the groups. Pointing directly at the destroyed entrance, the MC asks how they plan to pay for the ruined sign and gate. The wreckage of the Beak family's storefront is still scattered across the ground as proof of the aggressive break-in. Sweating nervously, the bandit boss mutters under his breath, realizing he's being ruthlessly extorted by a child. Defeated by logic, Guak tosses a heavy bag of coins on the ground, warning that this is all the money they have for repairs. Watching the scene quietly, the patriarch is blown away by the absurd cleverness of his newly adopted son. Internally, the boy celebrates the victory, remembering all the tough years he had to survive on the streets of the martial world. With an incredibly awkward laugh, the big guy announces that now they are really leaving the premises. Soon, the group of troublemakers turns their backs and leaves the property in peace. Relieved by the outcome, the MC reflects that he perfectly managed to cut the tragic ties they had with that gang. Focusing on the invaders' peaceful retreat, he celebrates having prevented his dad from getting hurt and finally changing their grim future. At that, the youth clenches his own fist, feeling the strong rush of being in control of the situation. Full of determination, he promises himself he will fix all the cruel misfortunes he suffered in his past life. Called over by his dad, the boy hears huge praise for solving a massive crisis without anyone getting hurt. The old butler joins the conversation laughing, proudly pointing out that they even managed to squeeze a good chunk of money out of those jerks. To keep up appearances, the kid just scratches his head and gives a little laugh, hiding his true experienced mindset. Even being just an 8-year-old kid, his attitude changed everyone's destiny right there. After this surprising event, no one in the house had any doubts about accepting the hero as an official and respected member of the Beak family. Early the next morning, the youth is already tying up his hair, actively getting ready for his new routine. His serious and focused gaze shows he doesn't plan on wasting a single second of this new chance. The sun lights up the family's large property, marking the start of a completely peaceful new day. In the spacious training courtyard, the reincarnated boy already begins practicing his martial arts moves with lots of energy and focus. The archery target stands still at the back of the lot, waiting for the heavy exercises to begin. Several wooden swords rest neatly on the racks near the main combat area. Throwing a fast, high kick in the air, he focuses on properly warming up his new body's muscles. Breathing deeply with continuous effort, the boy starts sweating due to the intensity of his movements. Next, he places both hands on the dirt floor to propel his own weight with extreme speed. Executing a perfect backflip spinning in the air, the youth is very surprised by the incredible agility he possesses now. The wonderful feeling of having a child's body full of energy gets him pretty hyped up. Landing firmly on the arena floor, he finishes the acrobatic maneuver without losing his balance once. Amazed by the practical result, the boy clenches his hand, observing just how impressive this new physical capacity is. Excited, he notices his current frame is extremely light and doesn't have any lasting damage from his old energy deviations. In his past life, the warrior suffered severe, permanent damage to his internal channels for trying to learn martial arts all by himself. Knowing this, he plans to build his power carefully step by step to reach much higher levels without going through suffering. The solo training session is interrupted by the patriarch, who approaches gently, commenting on how early the boy woke up. The caring lord asks if the newest household member managed to get a peaceful night's sleep in the unfamiliar bed. Flashing a radiant smile, the young vagabond replies that he actually had the best sleep of his entire long life. Happy with the quick adaptation, the father points behind him, mentioning they didn't have time for proper introductions during yesterday's chaos. Presenting the two slightly shy kids, the man formally introduces the MC's new younger siblings. The father details that Hyunso is 7 years old and Yeonyeon is only 5, making it clear that the reincarnated boy is the oldest of the three. Super excited, the little girl flashes a huge smile, praising the incredible attitude the MC had when kicking out those scary bad guys. The boy sweetly listens as the girl happily cheers about getting such a cool older brother. Praising the little girl's honesty, he blushes a bit and thanks her, saying she is extremely cute. Annoyed by all this affectionate interaction, Hyunso grumbles with his arms crossed, sarcastically calling the newbie a piglet. Full of attitude, the arrogant boy rants that he is the true heir of the house and will never accept submitting to a stranger. The father tries to scold the rude behavior right away, while the little girl just lets out a mocking sound at her annoying brother. Taking a good look at the scene, the experienced warrior notices the kid's difficult personality is exactly the same as before. He deduces this childish rebellion is just the natural fear and insecurity of losing the firstborn spot to an adopted kid. In his previous life, the MC always chose to lower his head and yield to everything out of pure respect for the stubborn boy's biological blood. Old memories show that the lack of strict discipline and the parents' spoiling allowed the brat to do whatever he pleased in the manor. As a direct result of this massive freedom, Hyunso turned into a terrible adult with a rotten character. The hero's calm look vanishes as he remembers all the disastrous problems this selfish personality caused the family in the future. While the brat keeps screaming indignantly that he is the only firstborn of that house, the ex-vagabond makes a drastic decision to alter history. With zero patience for tantrums, young HWI steps up and grabs the kid by the collar, demanding he speak to his older brother with proper respect. Seeing the aggressive move, the patriarch immediately steps in, asking the boy to let the younger one go. Muryong argues it's better to give Hyunso some time to absorb the idea, since everything happened so fast, explaining that scolding him now will only breed more resentment in the stubborn boy's heart. The dad believes kids naturally form bonds by spending time together, and the MC guarantees he'll try hard to make friends. Patting his adopted son's head, the Lord warns they'll have a serious talk later to get things straight. He makes a point to praise the incredible maturity of the ex-vagabond, regretting that his youngest doesn't have even half of those manners. Hearing this direct comparison leaves the brat boiling with rage in silence. Sweating cold at the situation, young HWI thinks saying this kind of stuff in front of the kid will only worsen the unnecessary hatred. Cutting the tense mood, the father announces that from now on, the two of them will train together for about 2 hours every morning. Letting out a cheerful laugh, the leader asks them to get along, receiving an immediate, energetic confirmation from the reincarnated boy. As soon as the patriarch turns his back and leaves the courtyard, the peaceful vibe completely changes. The older boy carefully observes the behavior of his problematic new little brother. Trying to break the ice in a friendly way, he asks what they should do first and suggests showing a bit of his training. Shooting a glare full of contempt, the little heir simply asks what the point of that is. Crossing his arms with a lot of attitude, the arrogant boy makes it clear he has zero interest in bonding. Hyunso tells him to stop faking closeness, calling the newbie a beggar and asking why he should accept him as an older brother. Without losing his cool, the MC answers directly that first, it was dad's order, and second, mom agreed too. Furthermore, he emphasizes that even if the kid is the true blood heir, chronological age isn't going to change. Annoyed by the undeniable logic, the boy turns his back, cursing again, prompting young HWI to ask if the hatred is due to his humble past or their lack of blood ties. The brat yells that it's both, justifying that even the family's sworn uncle comes from a noble background and didn't come from the streets. The reincarnated boy listens to that storm of prejudice while keeping an expression of utter disappointment, realizing internally how the youngest goes out of his way to use the word beggar all the time just to try and humiliate him. Letting out a long sigh, the hero wonders how a man is kind, and just as his father could raise a son with that kind of mindset. Reflecting that he needs to crush this toxic personality right now, or it will bring a massive disaster in the future. He remembers very well that in his past life, when this kid took over as the head of the house, he completely ignored the advice of all the wise elders. Focusing only on his own selfish luxuries and pleasures, the boy managed to entirely destroy the Beak family's legacy. The memory of the painful past makes the MC's blood boil with hatred, promising himself he'll never let the same tragedy happen again. Decided on teaching a practical lesson, he lunges forward abruptly, scaring the fleeing boy. The little heir panics and backs away, realizing way too fast that he crossed all the lines with his teasing. Concluding that a good physical scare is the best medicine for an ill-mannered child, the ex-vagabond delivers a loud disciplinary smack to the target. Tossed onto the arena dirt and holding his head after the impact, the boy grumbles while young HWI feels his soul has been cleansed. The MC admits very calmly that he really was homeless and had to beg for food scraps. But then he immediately throws it in the brat's face, asking if he'd have what it takes to survive out in the real world for a single day. Pulling the boy up by his collar, the ex-vagabond asks if he would have the audacity to look down on the dreaded warriors of the beggar sect the same way. Leaving the youngest terrified by the pressure, he tells him to burn it into his mind that every person under the sky has their own worth. The little heir stays on the ground, absorbing that heavy, reality-filled scolding. Letting go of the kid's clothes, the hero understands that mere words won't actually change a spoiled child's mind. To settle things in a language the martial world understands, he grabs a wooden sword and tosses another one toward his opponent. The frightened boy grips the training weapon as he receives a direct order to stand up and fight. Proposing an offer he can't refuse, the older boy promises that if he loses, he will do whatever the kid says, even vanish from the property altogether. The chance to easily get rid of that annoying intruder makes the boy's eyes widen with hope. However, the MC's condition for winning demands that the youngest starts calling him older brother with total obedience every single time. Watching the whole commotion closely, little Yon cheers super excitedly, rooting for both competitors. Firming up their stances, the boys stand face to face in the center of the courtyard with their swords ready. At that, the reincarnated boy takes a firm step on the dirt floor to kick off the clash. Totally focused on breaking the boy's useless pride, the hero decides he needs to demonstrate overwhelming technical superiority right there. On the other side, Hyunso adjusts the grip on his weapon, letting out a clear mocking sound. Entering a defensive combat stance, the brat brags that he has already been training martial arts with his dad for 2 years. Bursting with confidence in his skills, he accepts the terms of the challenge, expecting an easy one. To spice things up, the reincarnated boy taunts him, saying he'll let the opponent attack 3 times without fighting back. Feeling his ego bruised by the sarcasm, the kid warns he absolutely will not hold back the power of his strikes. Adopting the cold stare of an experienced master, young HWI gets ready to discipline the little boy without an ounce of mercy. In a reckless dash, the little heir charges forward, kicking up dust and going for a direct, predictable attack. But the offense turns into pure panic when he loses sight of the target, only to hear a chilling whisper coming from behind his back. Completely lost by the absurd dodging speed, the youngest tries to turn around, cutting through the air in a blind hope of defending himself. With a scream of frustration, he launches a heavy top-down strike using his entire body weight. The wooden blade is blocked effortlessly, leaving the boy shocked that he dealt no real impact. Without losing the perfect rhythm of his defense, the ex-vagabond seizes the opening and lands a clean whack right on the brat's head. The heir falls flat on his stomach whining while the winner mocks him, reminding him the rule was to attack, not to take a beating. Maintaining a relaxed and intimidating posture, the older brother warns they still need a lot of time for that supposed heart-to-heart talk. Rubbing his throbbing forehead, the loser grumbles with teary eyes, unable to process where such a lightning-fast attack came from. Accusing his opponent of acting like a coward, he tries to come up with lame excuses, only to receive a devilish glare in return. Falling into genuine panic when facing the newbie's dark aura, the boy starts crawling away, looking for an impossible escape. Setting speeches aside, the MC steps forward and unleashes a series of quick strikes to discipline the loudmouth kid once and for all. Completely oblivious to the tense mood, the little girl jumps for joy and declares HWI the big winner of the match. She runs over and throws herself at the champion, hugging his leg, while the arrogant youngest stays sprawled in the dirt, dealing with his bitter defeat. Adjusting his own clothes, the experienced warrior takes a deep breath, quite satisfied with having established the house's true hierarchy on the very first day. Looking at the bruised kid's condition, he is surprised to notice that despite his constant fear, the child never let go of the wooden sword. Renewing his vow to turn this brat into an honorable man no matter what, he orders the defeated boy to get up immediately. Gathering whatever shattered pride is left, the little heir obeys the order, groaning a lot because of his sore body. Breaking the expectation of more punishment, the older boy praises the kid's firmness, teaching him that the son of a martial family must never surrender to physical pain. Hearing honest words of approval right after losing badly leaves Hyunso completely bewildered and a little emotional. Capitalizing on the emotional shock, the reincarnated boy demands a proper response, and finally hears the boy stutteringly call him brother with respect. Pleased with the excellent educational outcome, the ex-vagabond promises to take his obedient new brother out for a fun walk, hyping up the family's youngest girl. With peace properly restored in the courtyard through brute force and moral lessons, the small group starts walking together toward the exit of the training area. Full of excitement, HWI suggests to Yon that they go out together, promising to show her everything out there. They approach the boundaries of the family's large property, looking for a way to sneak out. The little girl tries to squeeze through, pushing hard to get past a very tight gap in the wall. At that, the older brother asks her to make a little room for a second, leaving the girl confused. Hyunso also squeezes through the same hole, grumbling a lot about getting all covered in dirt. As soon as the brat finishes crossing, the MC pulls him by the arm to help him up safely. The hero finds the situation hilarious, asking if the two of them have never used a dog hole before and noting how they grew up full of good manners. While the heir complains about having to pull off this secret stunt and ruining his clothes, the older boy explains that this was the only way out. The reincarnated boy pats his little sister affectionately to remind her they haven't been out for months, promising lots of fun despite her worry about having no money. Keeping a highly confident smile, the ex-vagabond shows he had already thought of that tiny detail. Flashing a piece of silver, he reveals he borrowed it from the bad guys who broke into their house yesterday, making the youngest thrilled at the idea of buying sweets. Totally suspicious, Hyunso asks if it's safe for them to walk around alone out there, since the area is known for being dangerous for kids. Thumping his chest, the hero guarantees he can handle it if anyone tries to pick a fight with them. However, the spoiled boy looks straight at his little sister, showing genuine concern for her safety. Justifying his fear, he warns that the girl is still very small, and it would be a total disaster if someone tried to take her away. Noticing this protective side, the MC jokes that the kid actually has a good heart, making the youngest turn his face away full of embarrassment. Right after, he reminds them that until yesterday he was a street kid, knowing every corner of that place and exactly where it is safe to walk. With a clever smile on his face, the ex-vagabond reveals he also hired a bodyguard to guarantee a peaceful stroll. Not understanding a single thing, the giant guac stares at the kids in the middle of the street, completely dumbfounded. Full of familiarity, the reincarnated boy waves excitedly, calling the brute Big Bro, while the little girl whispers, asking if that isn't the scary man from yesterday. The gang leader keeps staring at the trio of brats in total silence, trying to process what is happening right there. Forcing himself to maintain composure, he asks the kid to explain exactly what the meaning of this clown show is. Annoyed by the sheer audacity, the big guy asks why the heck he would have to work as a babysitter for these kids out in public. Keeping up the cynicism, the boy throws it in his face that the invader himself agreed to be called older brother the day before. The memory of his own embarrassing words hits the bad guy hard, making him sweat cold as he realizes he fell into the kid's trap. Pressing even further, the MC asks if a real man would go back on his word, giving the guy two tough options to choose from. Flashing the most manipulative smile possible, the boy calmly asks which option the big guy would rather pick. Completely cornered by the child's logic, Guak grinds his teeth in pure anger, having no way to escape that humiliating situation. Swallowing his pride hard, the bandit boss finally accepts the protection job, while little Yon has a blast through the crowded market. Capitalizing on the victory, the young hero immediately points to the food stalls, starting to spend the silver he snagged. The family's youngest runs super excitedly toward the sweet skewer stall, mesmerized by the shiny treats. The small group strolls through the lit-up market, creating a very unusual scene with the dangerous criminal acting as a babysitter. Tugging on her older brother's sleeve, the little girl asks for a few more sweets, getting instant permission to pick whatever she wants. Super happy with the freedom, she runs around full of energy, leaving the spoiled heir and the makeshift bodyguard watching in silence. At that, the smell of grilling meat skewers starts taking over the air, catching everyone's attention around there. Staring at the juicy food, Hyunso gulps, trying to hide his massive craving for it. Noticing his brother's desire, the MC offers a steaming skewer right to him, calling him by his affectionate nickname. The brat is completely surprised by the kind gesture, asking how the ex-vagabond knew he prefers meat over sweets. Letting out a good laugh, the older boy explains it was super easy to notice, since the kid couldn't stop sneaking peeks at the stall. Encouraged to try the freshly made food, the boy looks at the delicious meat, already giving in to temptation. Unable to resist for long, the heir takes a generous bite of the skewer to taste the flavor. With his cheeks full, the kid's eyes sparkle as he realizes just how tasty that street food is, while the reincarnated boy just smiles with satisfaction. Admitting defeat, he confirms it's really good, and the hero jokes saying the flavor is extra special exactly because it was a gift from him. Shifting focus quickly, the boy steps forward, scolding the youngest girl so she doesn't eat so many sweets at once. Acting like a responsible brother, Hyunso fusses that sugar is bad for your health, sparking a little childhood bickering that warms the MC's heart. The narration skips ahead through Yon's diary entries, revealing that the family's father got extremely furious when they returned home. After spending the whole day playing and enjoying their freedom, the three siblings ended up on their knees in the courtyard, taking a massive scolding from the patriarch. However, the newly arrived brother took on the leader role and took all the blame himself, demanding to receive the punishment alone to protect the younger ones. In her innocent notes, the little girl confesses she was secretly relieved to have escaped her dad's fury so easily, showing that going through that kind of strict reprimand was something she absolutely hated dealing with. Despite the small hiccup at the end of the day, the market trip proved to be one of the most fun experiences they've ever had together. The sun slowly begins to set, bathing the city structures in an orange glow that marks the end of the afternoon. The clouds take on warm tones in the sky as the street traffic starts prepping for the start of the night. Sitting alone at a small food stall, the gang boss is surprised by the sudden approach of the manipulative brat. Radiating friendliness, the boy flashes a giant smile and announces his arrival by calling the big guy brother once again. Stopping his bowl of noodles right away, Guak glares at the boy with a mix of shock and total annoyance. Almost choking from the surprise, the bad guy yells, asking why this kid is disturbing his peace again. The man's indignant shout echoes around, breaking the tranquility of that isolated meal he was trying to enjoy. Ignoring the older man's stress, the reincarnated boy pretends he just wanted to see him, making the brute massage his temples and ask if the babysitting gig wasn't enough. Shifting his expression to a highly focused and sharp look, the young hero warns that this time the matter is about real business. Confused by the sudden attitude shift, the criminal leader raises an eyebrow, trying to figure out what kind of deal a child could possibly offer. In the very next instant, the sound of chopsticks hitting the bowl accompanies the big guy's scream of absolute shock. Completely in disbelief and sweating cold, Guak repeats the shocking info that the kid knows where a rival gang hid all their silver. The boy tells the man to shut up immediately, keeping up the lie that he heard these valuable rumors while surviving on the city's dark streets. Still suspicious of that unlikely source, the bad guy analyzes the offer, trying to find a hole in the boy's story. Pointing his finger with a lot of confidence, the MC cuts straight to the chase and invites the boss to join this huge scheme. The unusual proposal to form an alliance to loot someone else's treasure leaves a suspenseful vibe in the open-air restaurant's atmosphere. Crossing his arms defensively, Guak asks why he'd share such a profitable lead instead of taking it all for himself. Using his manipulative charm, the boy lets out a chuckle, praising the incredibly noble and famous character of his great big bro. Catching the bandit totally off guard, the flattery hits the big guy's ego, and he confesses he's never received a compliment about his personality before. Killing the friendly vibe in a flash, the ex-vagabond warns he was just joking, and that the real reason involves a certain peculiar rumor. Tension takes over the table once again, as the noodle broth gets cold in the abandoned bowl during their serious talk. Focusing his gaze menacingly, the youth reveals he found out the faction leader's sixth son got himself a secret mistress. Shock hits Guak's face when the boy finishes the sentence, exposing a severe scandal of family dishonor within the organization. Furious that his dirtiest secrets are being aired out by a random kid, the brute stands up radiating a dark aura and calling the kid a brat. Keeping a relaxed posture, the MC warns he's no enlightened saint to just sit there taking insults quietly. The taunt leaves Guak boiling with rage, warning with a threatening aura that his patience with this kid has a limit. Unfazed by the intimidation, the boy shoots a sharp glare at the brute. Asking the man to listen to the end, he argues that this unexpected alliance can fix the criminal leader's biggest headache. The ex-vagabond promises he will find a way to turn the woman at the center of that scandal into the big guy's legitimate wife, making it crystal clear that he is talking about the great love the bad guy keeps a secret. In his past life, this exact mysterious woman was the main trigger for a disastrous internal conflict within the Hongyo faction. Despite Guak's deep feelings, the supreme leader of the organization would never accept a former courtesan as his son's main wife. Aiming to expand his own influence, the criminal patriarch needed a daughter-in-law with high status and ended up permanently getting rid of his son's lover. But the gang leader made a terrible miscalculation by underestimating the situation, completely ignoring the fact that this woman was the only person the brute loved more than his own life. This tragedy permanently destroyed the relationship between father and son inside the criminal organization, sparking an actual internal war that stained the streets red and brought down the faction that once ruled the entire county. Knowing all of this, the reincarnated youth reflects that his child body still limits his movements a lot, urgently needing a strong ally until he grows up. Seeing the perfect opportunity there, he plans to guarantee the bad guy's unshakable loyalty by using the forgiveness and safety of his lover as a bargaining chip. Intrigued by the bold proposal, the bandit boss asks how exactly a pint-sized kid plans to keep such a massive promise. Keeping a very serious expression, the big guy listens to the boy's explanations. Doubting a rookie's capability, he gets surprised when the kid argues that no one would dare question the wife's past if Guak reached the very top of the faction. The little hero details that the rival Chingsa gang isn't just hiding silver, but they are also smuggling poison bombs to destroy their organization, explaining that the big guy must act fast and be the hero who stops this disaster before the faction suffers irreversible damage. The bad guy raises an eyebrow processing the info, while the MC demands an answer to the deal, guaranteeing that saving the entire faction from a surprise attack would be a huge merit to climb the ranks. Clenching his fist in silence, the brute remembers that this kid's intel on rival spies has already proven to be extremely accurate. Knowing full well that no one in the whole world beats street folks when it comes to spreading and gathering secret rumors. With that, the criminal leader concludes that the odds of this crazy story being entirely true are huge. Giving in to the temptation of power, he tells the boy to lead the way, warning that he'll trust him just this once. Highly satisfied with the result of his manipulation, the reincarnated boy turns around, praising the wisdom of his new ally. Night falls over the city, lighting up the deserted streets with only the faint glow of the full moon. The scene shifts to a complex of old buildings situated slightly away from the busy downtown. Nearby, a few rough-looking men rest on the ground, wearing torn clothes to hide their true identities. The guys' rugged features and stiff posture easily give away that they are far from being harmless beggars. Keeping constant watch, one of the disguised guards checks the surroundings to ensure the area's security. Watching it all from afar, Guak finds the rival's disguise pathetic and suggests knocking one of the guards out, asking if the kid can handle the other two. The three targets keep chatting absent-mindedly, while the big guy asks worriedly if the kid even knows how to fight. Instead of using conventional weapons, the boy just gathers some heavy rocks from the ground with his small hands. Oozing confidence, the young strategist teaches that in a situation like this, it's way better to use your brain than brute force. Meanwhile, one of the fake guards yawns out of boredom, leaning against the cold wall. Suddenly, a loud scream breaks the silence of the night, catching the attention of everyone present. Stepping out of the shadows with a lot of attitude, the little MC walks toward the enemies, announcing his arrival in a flashy way. The three men turn around confused, unable to understand what a child is doing at a secret hideout at that hour. Approaching without showing an ounce of fear, the kid is questioned about why he's wandering around there. Acting rudely, one of the big guys shoves the boy's head, warning that this is no place to ask for handouts and telling him to get lost. Faking innocence, the ex-vagabond asks them not to be so cold to a fellow professional, mentioning the rumors about weird beggars who never go out to work. Right after, he offers a bowl full of stew, inviting the suspicious guys to share a meal together. Staring at the cheap food, the rival gang members make faces of absolute disgust. With zero patience, the guy kicks the bowl away, rejecting the offer, causing the boy to point out how bizarre it is for a street dweller to turn down free food. Adopting a dark look, the tiny invader openly questions if these guys really are who they claim to be. Realizing their cover might be blown, the henchmen start whispering among themselves. One of them suggests putting a quick and silent end to the nosy kid's life right there. But the trio's leader brushes off the violent idea, preferring to just chase the child away to avoid drawing unnecessary attention to the hideout. Observing the interaction, the reincarnated youth focuses his attention on the opponent's movements. Analyzing their aura, the experienced warrior concludes they are second-rate fighters, and admits his current body lacks the internal energy to beat them in a fair fight. However, he steps firmly on a rock on the ground, proving he has no intention of backing down. The annoyed guard turns around again, threatening to dish out severe punishment if the brat doesn't vanish from his sight. Faking an accident theatrically, the boy trips on the rock on purpose and launches the dirty pot with the leftover stew straight at the enemy's head. The hot broth drips down the henchman's face, who screams in rage, while the kid apologizes, pretending to be terrified. Shifting his posture instantly, the hero plans to make up for his massive physical disadvantage with pure martial technique. With a quick slide of his feet across the floor, he perfectly adjusts the distance. Dashing forward with impressive speed for his size, the MC extends his hand, executing a divine movement technique. Still with the pot stuck on his head, the big guy freezes in shock, seeing the brat close the gap in the blink of an eye. Using the rock hidden in the palm of his hand, the youth lands a devastating strike right in the center of the pot. The insane impact punches through the metal and hits the guy's face, making him cough up from the force of the blow. Watching their comrade collapse, the other two henchmen are left completely bewildered by the scene. In a single, lightning-fast, lethal move, the tiny invader drops a much larger guard without giving him a chance to defend. Showing his own fist, the boy mockingly asks if those supposed beggars never heard the most famous saying in the martial arts world. Overflowing with attitude, he teaches that everyone should be careful around women, the elderly, and children, because judging strength by appearance is a fatal mistake. Furious over the moral lesson, one of the remaining guards draws a blade, cursing the brat and getting ready to attack. At that moment, two giant hands appear out of nowhere, grabbing the henchmen's heads from behind. Showing all his brutality, Guak demands the rivals shut their mouths as he lifts them into the air like ragdolls. The criminal leader smashes the two heads together with such extreme force that the sound of cracking bones can be heard. The bodies hit the floor completely knocked out, prompting a sarcastic compliment from the kid about the beautiful sound of the attack. Hyped up, the ex-vagabond gives a thumbs up, praising his big bro's cold and merciless attitude towards the faction's enemies. Dusting off his hands, the brute reflects that despite going down easily, those guys were strong, second-rate warriors. Staring at the boy's calm stance, the bad guy wonders how experienced fighters lost so fast to a brat, suspecting the kid took some magic pill. With the three guard dogs properly neutralized, the path to raid the secret stash and grab the bombs is completely clear for the duo. The enemy guard is still laid out on the ground, out cold after taking that surprise attack. Taking advantage of the clear path, Guak immediately pushes open the secret warehouse's wooden door. The two step right into the dark room, coming face to face with a bunch of stacked boxes. Finding the massive quantity absurd, the big guy suggests they check everything really quickly so things don't go south. The boy surveys the place full of confidence, knowing exactly what they came there to find. Turning on that manipulative charm, the kid praises his ally for taking down the guards without breaking a sweat. Letting out a loud laugh, the criminal boss brags about his own talent, while the MC finds his arrogance to be off the charts. Cutting the small talk, the reincarnated youth pulls the lid off one of the chests, catching the big guy's attention. A bright light hits their faces directly as soon as the box opens, revealing the knight's prize. The chest is simply stuffed with silver coins, leaving the bad guy amazed by all that cash. Letting out a gasp of shock, Guak realizes the fortune is way bigger than he ever imagined. Trying to pull a fast one, the big guy proposes the kid takes the poison bombs and leaves the silver with him. The kid immediately fires back indignantly, reminding him the deal was to split everything 50-50. Switching to a cold posture, the little hero decrees that the money stays with him and the ally takes the weapons. The gang leader glares at the child with a serious look, trying to process that bold demand. Calling the kid a brat, Guak asks if he planned to double-cross him right from the start. Internally, the boy evaluates that the big guy isn't a bad person, but he needs to truly test his trust. To throw out the bait, the boy spreads his arms wide, telling the bandit to end him right then and there. Utterly shocked by the audacity, the bad guy listens as the boy says that taking down a child would be a piece of cake. Completing his crazy logic, the little strategist guarantees the Beak family wouldn't really care that much, explaining that he was just recently adopted, so everyone would just assume he ran away from home. Sweat drips down the criminal leader's face as he freezes in the face of the brat's coldness. Keeping that calm smile, the boy throws it in his face that this is the perfect chance to make him disappear without a trace. Silence takes over the warehouse while the big guy processes that child's absolute madness. Visibly uncomfortable, the man grinds his teeth trying to decipher what goes through this brat's mind. Analyzing the situation, Guak notices the boy acts completely without fear, remembering how he seems to walk on a razor's edge all the time without caring about the danger. At that moment, the villain envisions the imposing silhouette of an absurdly strong warrior, overlapping with the figure of the little boy. The posture gives off the exact image of a vagabond swordsman who has already faced the worst things in the world. Shaking his head to brush away the illusion, the bandit grumbles, trying to snap back to reality. Admitting he was played for a fool by that intimidating aura, Guak realizes he is just being manipulated. Letting out a long sigh of defeat, he gives up and tells the boy to take all the silver. Justifying his decision, the big guy claims he doesn't want to dirty his hands with a harmless rookie, also confessing that making the kid who called him brother all day disappear would result in some nasty nightmares. The boy listens, surprised, as his ally assures him that taking just the bombs is enough to move up in the faction. Confirming his theory, the MC reflects that this guy actually has a good heart beneath all that tough exterior. A genuine and light smile appears on the child's face, very satisfied to have secured a solid partner. Wanting to wrap things up quickly, Guak turns his back, ready to get the heck out of the hideout. Jumping up suddenly, the boy hugs the big guy, joking that he really will show up in his nightmares. The bad guy yells in annoyance, calling the kid a weirdo, but the brat just teases him, asking if he liked the hug. Early the next morning, peace reigns quietly over the front of the Beak Manor. Inside the house, the vibe is totally different, with the patriarch and the head butler utterly bewildered. Right in the middle of the table, the chest stuffed with silver shines brightly, lighting up the whole room. Freaking out over so much wealth gathered in one place, the butler begs HWI to explain where he got this. Bursting with pride, the boy thumps his chest, guaranteeing he earned every single coin through hard work. Not fully buying the story, the old servant asks how a pint-sized kid managed to score that kind of cash. Very excitedly, the boy suggests blowing the money on fixing the roof, paying off debts, and buying medicine for his mom. Hearing these pure intentions, the butler breaks down in tears, moved by the young master's kindness. On the other side, the family patriarch remains standing, staring at the treasure with a grim look. Rubbing his face worriedly, the dad demands his son tell the truth about where the silver came from. Fearing the worst, the lord asks if the boy got into trouble, but the kid swears it was smooth sailing. With zero filter, HWI blurts out that he hung out with Guak, the same guy who smashed their gate yesterday. Letting out a casual little laugh, the MC starts telling them everything that went down last night. The daylight shines on the quiet property courtyard while the gossip flows freely inside. A tray with a teapot and snacks appears on the table, showing that time has flown by. Wrapping up the story, the boy justifies that a real hero takes dirty money to do good things. With his eyes sparkling, he says he just wanted to repay the love of being welcomed into their family. The dad and the butler fall into absolute silence, digesting the massive weight of those words. The head of the house lowers his head, reflecting deeply on the surreal actions of his adopted son. Breaking the silence, the patriarch admits he should give him a severe scolding, but acknowledges the boy is exceptional. The dad argues it would be a huge mistake to clip the wings of someone so talented just because he's a child. With an ache in his chest, he regrets that the family doesn't have the resources to train the boy the proper way. But he stands firm, stating he will never stand in the way of the bright future the youth has ahead of him. The only thing the Lord begs for is for the boy to promise to steer clear of extremely dangerous messes. HWI listens to this sincere plea, feeling a huge warmth in his heart. The ex-vagabond remembers that in both lives, this man always treated him like a truly beloved son. Appreciating all that trust, the dad warns that the house absolutely cannot keep all the money. Pushing half of the silver back, the leader tells the boy to handle his own cash, leaving the servants jaw-dropping. The boy is startled by the decision, realizing the crazy responsibility of managing a fortune at 8 years old. Past the shock, the little hero locks himself in the library to brainstorm his next steps. Looking at the stack of books, he decides he needs to invest the money to multiply it all super fast. Curious about the silence, little Yon pops her face over the table, keeping an eye on her brother. Acting completely adorable, the little girl asks what he's writing so intently on that paper. HWI offers the sheet for her to read, but the youngest pouts, remembering she still doesn't know how to put letters together. Understanding her side, the MC explains he is writing a fun romance to make more money. Hearing her brother's plan, Yon happily comments that their mom loves reading those kinds of cheesy stories. Hearing that, HWI agrees and mentions he was already on his way to see her. The sound of the brush gliding on the paper shows he didn't waste any time getting down to business. Holding the sheets already filled with his handwriting, the boy gives a confident smile, wondering if she will find the story entertaining. The hefty finished manuscript rests on the table, bearing the pompous title of a newly crafted tragic drama. The afternoon rolls on quietly, lighting up the entire spread of the Grand Beak Manor under the warm sun. Deep inside the private chambers, a heavy coughing fit echoes, breaking the silence of the place. The family's mother tries to muffle the sound using a cloth, visibly weakened by the effort. Jiang Enhua breathes with extreme difficulty, showing that her health is already quite fragile. At that moment, the MC enters the room, calling out to her with a very soft voice. Surprised by the unexpected visit, the woman looks up at her adopted son. The boy steps closer holding his homemade book, while she offers a tired, welcoming smile. She kindly asks what brings the boy there, and he simply replies that he wanted to chat. HWI stays silent for a moment, just observing the woman's worrying condition. Smelling the strong scent of medicine in the air, the hero recalls that in his past life, his mother developed a severe illness where no treatment worked. And unfortunately, that terrible condition ended up taking Enhua away way too early, leaving an open wound in everyone. The patriarch really tried everything to cure his wife, burning through resources they didn't even have. However, the debts to buy expensive meds started snowballing into something totally uncontrollable. Due to this financial pit, the family went into a deep decline, and the father was swallowed by sadness after losing his beloved. It was precisely from this tragic point that little Hyun-soo also lost his way and became a terrible adult. Understanding the weight of destiny, the boy concludes that to save everyone, he needs to cure her illness first, which requires a ton of cash for a good doctor. Even though he squeezed some change out of that rival gang, he knows he needs a stable business that brings in steady profit. Snapping back to the present, the boy strikes up a conversation saying he heard from his little brother about her love for reading. Enhua confirms she just flips through a few things to pass the time while stuck in bed, at which point the boy offers what he brought. Handing over the thick manuscript, he explains he wrote it all based on gossip he heard around town. The woman takes the material completely amazed, finding it incredible that the little boy wrote a whole novel by himself. The MC flashes that proud, clever smile, eagerly waiting for his first reader's verdict. Carefully, the mother turns the first page and instantly dives into the words written there. With a jolt, her eyes widen, completely hooked by the plot right in the opening paragraphs. She calls his name looking a bit shocked, but the youth just tells her to read it calmly. After a good while of silent reading, the boy asks super confidently if the story is actually good. Closing the back cover of the work, the woman takes a deep breath to process everything she just witnessed. Enhua's face lights up with pure joy as she hugs the book to her chest with great affection. She assures him the story is simply wonderful, leaving the young author quite pleased with the praise. Confessing she was so immersed she couldn't stop reading, the mother asks where he got such a captivating narrative from. The boy gives a little laugh, playing it off as just piecing rumors together, but the truth is he blatantly plagiarized a massive blockbuster from the future. In his past life, the only leisure time the vagabond warrior had was devouring cheap novels he found lying around. Being a die-hard fan of adventure and justice stories, he reread his favorites so many times he memorized every single comma of the original text. Silently thanking the great authors of the future, the boy cuts to the chase and asks if the book would make good money. Knowing nothing about business, the woman asks why he is suddenly asking about market value. Continuing his grand capitalistic plan, the hero locks himself in the library again, ready for the next step. An extremely cunning smile appears on the brat's face, showing he already has the right contact in mind. The boy asks to send a letter to the owner of a famous antique bookstore, and it doesn't take long for a transport to approach the manor. The animal's hooves stop firmly at the property's entrance, responding to the urgent call. Adjusting her own clothes, the mysterious visitor steps onto the ground, ready to find out who called her there. A stylish woman wearing glasses adjusts her straw hat, asking with massive excitement if this is the Beak Manor. Facing the family's huge front facade, the outsider gears up to make a great first impression. Taking a deep breath, she gathers her courage to project her voice loudly. The woman yells out, announcing her arrival, calling for a certain master with a mysterious pen name and swearing she came running as fast as possible. Frustrated by the lack of a welcoming party, she grumbles, demanding the great author appear immediately to receive her with proper honors. One of the house servants runs to the gate sweating cold, politely asking who the young lady is looking for while making such a scene. She insists on that weird pen name, justifying that she crossed the entire city just because of the urgent letter the author sent. The employee is completely lost, stating there is no one with that strange name living there. While the chaos unfolds down below, the two brothers spy on everything hidden behind a high wall. The youngest watches the yelling, arguing that the woman must be crazy, but the MC celebrates that his big chance for profit has arrived. Staring at his adopted brother with a lot of suspicion, the heir asks if the newbie got into trouble again, getting only a lame excuse in return. Annoyed by the fakeness, the boy throws it in his face that the house hasn't had a single day of peace since the ex-vagabond stepped foot in there. Starting to list the absurdities, he recalls that on the very first day, the kid extorted money from the most dangerous criminal in the area like it was nothing. Next, the newbie showcased a level of martial arts completely unrealistic for his age, without ever having trained properly in his life. And to make things worse, he pickpocketed a rival gang, bringing a sketchy fortune home, while HWI defends himself saying he just reallocated dirty resources. Wrapping up the scary list, the brat discovers the news about the book and accuses the older boy of being an ancient monster disguised as a toddler. The blood drains from the MC's face right away, sweating cold for being figured out so accurately. Trying to keep his cool, the boy lets out a nervous chuckle, calling the theory crazy, but internally admits the kid has great instincts. The youngest looks away a bit embarrassed, confessing that at first he hated the idea of having an older brother with all his might. After all, in his mind, his dad had no reason to adopt someone else when he already had a blood son at home. Dealing with childhood insecurity, the little heir thought he would lose all the love and attention, developing a heavy grudge against the newbie. The fear of being left out in his own family was so big that accepting the intruder's presence felt like the end of the world to him. But the boy's expression softens as he reveals he quickly realized the true nature of the new brother, shattering all his prejudice. Spending their mornings sweating it out in the courtyard, the two built a real bond through their intense effort in martial arts. Unable to handle the brutal training pace, the youngest would pant, begging for mercy and finally accepting the older boy's leadership. Satisfied with the progress, HWI would wrap up the session telling the boy to rest, causing the little heir to collapse from fatigue right there. The exhaustion was so intense that the brat's only wish was to take a quick bath and pass out in bed until the next day. However, at a certain point deep in the night, a rhythmic sound coming from outside ended up catching the youngest's attention. Peeking carefully through the door, the youngest caught the MC training alone tirelessly under the faint moonlight. The hero delivered continuous heavy strikes with the wooden sword, keeping a fierce look even while completely drenched in sweat. Watching that insane dedication from afar, the boy was amazed to see that his brother kept pushing his own limits using extra sandbags. Giving up on spying all night, the youngest decided to go back to bed, figuring the older boy would soon stop training out of pure exhaustion. The sun rises peacefully, revealing the beautiful mountains surrounding the region the next morning. Stretching his body in the middle of the courtyard, the MC takes a deep breath, celebrating the great night of sleep he had, and decides to do a warm-up before starting the day. At that moment, the little heir slides his bedroom door open, still a bit sleepy, trying to see something out there. Looking at the spacious courtyard, the boy realizes someone is already up way before him. The kid gets a huge shock when he spots his adopted brother, already holding a real sword in the early hours of the morning. Unbelieving what he sees, Hyunso wonders if the newbie spent the whole night training and notices he added even more sandbags to his body. HY's gaze reflects deep concentration and an unshakable determination aimed at his goal. With an incredibly heavy and fast motion, the hero delivers a top-down strike, tearing through the air with vibrant blue energy. Maintaining perfect form, he continues the combo of attacks without showing any struggle with the real weapon's weight. His mastery over the blade is absolute, creating crushing pressure in the area with every new move executed. Finishing the sequence, the boy spins the sword masterfully, dissipating the built-up energy totally naturally. The youngest is paralyzed with shock, realizing his older brother just perfectly executed all three forms of the Gichin sword, their dad's signature move. Noticing the boy's presence nearby, the reincarnated youth turns around calmly, asking why he woke up so early. Completely bewildered by the absurd display of power, the heir lets his wooden sword slip from his hand and fall straight to the ground. Praising the kid's drive to train bright and early, the older boy extends his hand, offering to help teach him the moves. The morning light shines on the duo as the vibe of rivalry finally vanishes from the training courtyard. Yielding to the respect that was just born, the brat shakes his brother's hand, sealing a new phase in their relationship. The ex-vagabond promises the boy will master those techniques in no time if he follows his lead, getting the youngest hyped to start the first lesson. It was in that exact moment of partnership that the heir truly understood what it meant to have an older brother looking out for him. Snapping back to the present behind the wall, the boy confesses that lately he feels like telling everyone how much he admires the newbie. Pumping his chest with pride, Hyunso declares without any shame that he has the coolest, most reliable brother ever. Hearing this incredibly sincere declaration catches the MC by surprise, warming his heart in a very special way. Analyzing the situation, the experienced warrior notices how the problematic kid started calling him brother in such an extremely natural way. This change is absurd considering that in his past life, that delinquent brat never accepted his presence and treated him like just another random beggar. Feeling a wave of affection, the hero playfully messes up the younger boy's hair, pulling a cute grumble from the kid. To reward the good attitude, he promises he'll make a lot more money so he can buy delicious foods for the youngest. Flashing a radiant smile, the MC invites the boy to go on a walk together again, internally reflecting on how adorable he has become. The little heir gets totally flustered by all that sudden affection, blushing and at a loss for words. The dynamic duo keeps messing around over in the corner, while the loud visitor keeps waiting at the property's main door. With zero patience left, the woman goes back to yelling at the entrance, demanding to know where this so-called master of words is. Shortly after, the confusion is sorted out, and the mysterious visitor is finally invited inside the grand manor. Once settled, she formally introduces herself as Chu Yongwal, explaining that she came rushing over as soon as she got the letter at her bookstore. Sitting across from the boy, the merchant apologizes for the noisy intrusion earlier, quickly getting forgiven by the host. Analyzing the child in front of her, the bookstore owner flashes an intrigued smile, trying to understand the situation. Being very direct, the woman confesses to being absolutely amazed to discover that the true identity of the author is a boy just 8 years old. She details that, judging by the depth of the writing, she was absolutely certain the text was the work of an experienced master pushing 40 years of age. Internally, the ex-vagabond praises the seller's intuition, acknowledging that if you add the time from his past life, her guess is dead on. Pushing surprises aside, Chu states that in business she doesn't care about age or gender, asking the real reason he sent that manuscript to her. Looking at the thick book resting on the table, the merchant makes it clear she highly doubts the intention was just a casual read. The little strategist loves the woman's blunt attitude and promises he won't beat around the bush either. Cutting straight to the main point, the boy decrees that he wants to sell his masterpiece exclusively through her bookstore. The seller adjusts her glasses without showing surprise, confirming she was already expecting this business pitch from the young master. However, she adopts a more realistic tone, warning that the boy is still naive, because a book doesn't sell just for being interesting. The woman explains educationally that entertainment stories are spread by storytellers in tea houses, and hardly anyone spends money buying physical books. Because of this established culture, the bookstore owner concludes it is very hard to pin a real financial value on that unique manuscript. Giving a highly confident smile, the boy fires back, stating that people will pay a high price just to have the privilege of reading the story. The MC has this absolute guarantee because he knows the future, knowing that once the work is released, word of mouth will trigger a massive fever. Impressed by the firmness in his words, the merchant taps her fingers on the table, praising the youth's remarkable confidence. She asks if the boy truly believes the public will fight to buy the work, and he simply answers by asking if the woman herself didn't devour the story. To play his ultimate card, the reincarnated boy casually drops that he has over 100 story concepts, just as good as that one stored in his head. The revelation hits the seller hard, making her eyes widen, completely shocked by the absurd amount. A victorious smile appears on the little author's face, noticing that the merchant swallowed the bait perfectly. In a desperate move, the woman lunges across the table space and grabs the boy in a surge of pure interest. The bookstore owner's eyes practically shoot sparks of ambition, seeing a mountain of cash right in front of her. Gripping the boy's small hands tightly, she shows she has no intention of letting this golden goose slip away under any circumstances. Begging with massive enthusiasm, Chu demands that the young master exclusively works with her bookstore, swearing she will never let him down. Overflowing with commercial energy, she guarantees her merchant instincts from a traditional family never fail, and that they will make an unimaginable fortune. Completely spooked by the sudden attack of capitalistic neediness, HWI stutters, asking the lady to let go of his hands. The woman lets out a loud, obnoxious laugh, ignoring the discomfort, while the boy figures out that this is the true greedy personality of his business partner. The simple facade of the Bixio Merchant Guild hides the gigantic potential the future holds for this establishment. Currently, the place is nothing more than a humble bookstore, but in less than 10 years, this name will dominate the entire nation as a colossal mercantile empire. And the one mainly responsible for expanding the business to that absurd scale is precisely the eccentric Chu Yongwal. Facing the future magnate head-on, the ex-vagabond is certain that the rumors about her flawless nose for making money are entirely true. The boy has zero doubts that his plagiarized books from the future will pull in an obscene amount of wealth in the right hands. Getting serious again, the merchant confesses she only traveled there because she needed to see with her own eyes what kind of person the mysterious author was. She asks if she passed the boy's test, since on her end her expectations were successfully surpassed. The woman states with total conviction that the boy's talent will shatter the norm of just reciting stories and will flip the flow of the whole market. Analyzing the proposal, the young master offers 40% of all profits in exchange for exclusive selling rights at her store. With the deal closed immediately, the little strategist proposes an extra move, suggesting they number all printed editions, leaving 10 autographed copies per batch. The plan is to sell these signed versions only to the first 10 buyers, creating the valuable concept of a super-limited premium edition. Chu loves the idea and suggests decorating these books with gold thread to charge a sky-high price, but soon considers that the production costs would be too heavy to bankroll right now. The merchant sits back in her chair, fixing her posture, starting to calculate how to round up the resources for this risky move. It's at this exact moment the boy plays his heaviest card, asking what she would think if he invested 4,000 silver coins straight into the bookstore. The mention of this incalculable fortune makes the woman lose her composure entirely, almost dropping her glasses in an explosion of total shock and disbelief. Absolutely enchanted by the millionaire pitch, the bookstore owner crosses the line and hugs the boy extremely tightly. She tries to snatch a kiss from the kid by any means, leaving him frantic trying to break free. With his face covered in lipstick marks and his hair a mess, the hero takes a deep breath while the old butler watches the scene from afar without understanding a thing. The merchant leaves super excited, promising to return with good news, but the boy just tells her to get out of his sight as fast as possible. Adjusting his wrinkled clothes, he ironically notes that in the business world, money turns any child into a highly respected master. Pumped about the new income stream, the ex-vagabond plans to write a few more manuscripts to send to his partner. Already outside, the future magnate walks confidently, guaranteeing she will be eagerly waiting for the next stories from her new investor. The butler follows the young master's steps, signaling they need to head back home soon. Watching the woman leave, the MC acknowledges that her drive for business is truly something out of the ordinary. Knowing the bright future of that bookstore, the boy confesses to being even more excited about this alliance than he imagined. Breaking the silence of their walk, the elderly man asks how much money the young master managed to squeeze out this time, finding the woman's personality quite scary. The boy gets confused by the sudden question, not quite getting the employee's logic. Explaining his logic, the butler recalls that days ago the boy extorted a dangerous gang, and figures that now it was time to fleece the bookstore owner to pay the manor's overdue bills. Feeling the weight of that innocent accusation, the reincarnated boy argues he really meant to use the money to help, but hearing that made him feel like a professional con artist. Despite the hilarious misunderstanding, he gives a warm smile, finding it really nice to see this more relaxed side of the old servant. Hyped about the cash, the employee suggests spending it all buying delicious food for the younger siblings to enjoy. A few days after that peaceful stroll, a massive scar-covered hand rests on a knee, waiting for answers. The giant Guak glares at the boy with sheer rage, demanding to know why he vanished for so long after promising to help with his beloved. Sweating cold under that absurd pressure, the boy listens to the bad guy threaten to end his life if it all turned out to be a lie. The criminal boss's patience had finally reached its limit, resulting in a straight-up kidnapping to the middle of an isolated bamboo forest. About an hour before this mess started, total calm ruled the large Beak family courtyard. The rustic training equipment sat silently, waiting for the start of another heavy physical workout session. Holding 2 stone weights tied to ropes, little Hyunso shook from head to toe trying to keep his defensive stance. The effort demanded so much from the kid's body that his legs could barely stay firm on the dirt floor. With teary eyes from pure suffering, the brat calls out to his older brother, begging for help. Unable to take the punishment anymore, he asks with a whimper how much longer he needs to keep holding those rocks. Acting like a true ruthless master, HWI smacks a twig against his own hand and orders the youngest to straighten his spine immediately. Keeping up the teacher persona, the MC details that this family martial art serves to harmonize the internal and external energies of the body. Totally exhausted and not understanding a single technical word, the little heir just stares into the void. Noticing the confusion, the older boy summarizes the lesson by saying that the more the body suffers now, the stronger it gets in the future, forbidding the kid from skipping training. The youngest grumbles that he didn't understand anything and that he is dying of fatigue. Praising the boy's endurance, HWI allows a break, while the little sister cheers, relieved that the heir survived the ridiculous weight. Looking at the kid sprawled on the floor, the ex-vagabond gives a proud smile, noticing that at least he didn't try to run away from the challenge. Deciding he needs a break too, the reincarnated boy sits on the ground, feeling the weight of exhaustion truly hit. Worried little Yon asks if he gets tired too, but Hyunso shoots back saying the older brother is a tireless monster. Looking at his own hands, the hero laments that his mind holds all the knowledge in the world, but this 8-year-old body lacks the stamina to use the techniques. In the blink of an eye, someone aggressively grabs the collar of his clothes and yanks him backward without any warning. The jump scare is massive, and the boy bitterly realizes his current reflexes are garbage compared to his past life. An intimidating shadow covers his vision, revealing a muscular chest covered in scars. Staring at the imposing figure of Guak, the boy is paralyzed, taking in the scale of the danger. Quickly, he processes the situation and realizes he needs to smooth-talk his way out of this jam. Pointing at the brute's chest, the boy changes the subject by complimenting the invader's huge muscles. The sudden attitude shift leaves the criminal leader totally confused and speechless. Overflowing with friendliness, the boy stands up, greeting the big guy as if they were old childhood friends. Cutting the act immediately, the bad guy warns he hates drawing attention, which is why he broke in by jumping over the manor's wall. Surveying the empty courtyard, Guak points out that this house's security is a joke for a family focused on martial arts. Analyzing the stone weights tossed on the ground, the big guy comments that their training looks like child's play. Being very blunt, the invader states that these techniques are good for building a solid foundation at best, but would never take anyone to the top of the martial world. The reincarnated boy silently agrees, remembering that in his past life he had to improve the family arts all on his own. Using his full innate talent, he managed to create a completely new and incredibly powerful cultivation method. But sadness takes over his mind when he remembers that, when he finally came home with this perfect technique, the manor was already destroyed. Clenching his fist tightly, the warrior feels the hatred from the past boil in his blood. Focusing on the present, he swears to himself that this time things will be completely different. Before he could keep reflecting, an oppressive reddish aura starts leaking from the brute's body, demanding attention. With no patience for stalling, the bad guy grabs the boy by his clothes, telling him to stay quiet and just follow orders. The hero panics, trying to figure out where he's being violently dragged off to. In an impressive leap, the big guy carries the kid off the property, ignoring his screams of protest. The little sister points at the sky, completely amazed, thinking her brother really learned how to fly. Desperate at the absurd scene, Hyunso yells for the youngest to run and tell dad that the newbie just got kidnapped. Dangling in the air with zero control, HWI gets completely dizzy, asking what the heck is going on here. Far from the manor, the two end up sitting in an isolated courtyard in the middle of a giant bamboo forest. Guak warns that this is his personal turf, guaranteeing no one will overhear their conversation. Recognizing the area, the boy realizes they aren't far from the restaurant where they ate days ago. Finding the boy's posture weird, the brute comments that any normal kid would be crying and messing their pants out of fear after a flight like that. Using his sharp tongue again, the little strategist claims he fully trusted his dear big bro's integrity and strength not to drop him. Shifting focus to what really matters, the vibe between the two gets pretty heavy. The big guy calls in the old promise, bringing up that the kid vanished after swearing he would make his beloved his official wife. Stomping his foot on the ground, the bad guy demands to know exactly what the crazy plan is to make this work. Trying to calm things down, HWI asks the man to stop looking so scary, since the topic involves his beloved's well-being. Hearing the brat call the woman older sister with such familiarity completely breaks the guy's aggressive posture. Joking about the situation, the boy argues that if she is his big bro's woman, logically she becomes his sister-in-law. Adopting a cold, analytical expression, the hero starts putting his mental chess pieces in place. He knows very well that this woman is the only real weakness of that unstoppable monster, serving as the trigger for the destruction of everything in the future. In his previous life, the faction leader ended her without mercy, sparking a bloody revolt led by Guak. With a passionate look, the big guy confesses that even though she is a former courtesan, she has the purest soul of all, and his only wish is to spend the rest of his life by her side. Wrapping up his vent, the big guy explains that his dad demands a marriage to a respectable family's daughter and forbids concubines. He confesses he doesn't want to make his beloved suffer, but also can't imagine life without her. Holding his own head in pure despair, the criminal leader admits he can't just butt heads with the patriarch's orders, and is totally at a loss for what to do. At that, the boy places his hand on the brute's knee very calmly to get his attention. The little strategist analyzes the situation, and sees that all that love and devotion the bad guy has for the former courtesan are completely genuine. Reflecting on the future, the boy remembers that it was exactly because of this pain that the big guy went mad with fury after losing his woman. However, the ex-vagabond knows full well that the disaster that destroyed the gang in the past wasn't just the work of a man with a broken heart. Behind the scenes of all that tragedy, there was an even more dangerous force pulling the strings. That mysterious man was none other than the courtesan's biological father, the martial world's dreaded public enemy. Oozing confidence, the MC tells his ally not to sweat it, guaranteeing he has a flawless plan to find this man before he makes a move. The plan is soon put into action in the city's busy, gossip-filled streets. Flashy posters start appearing glued to walls, showing a beautiful drawing of a woman alongside an appealing text. It takes almost no time for the news to catch the eyes of people walking through the market. Two gentlemen approach the commotion, curious to figure out why so many people are gathered there. Reading the notice out loud, one of them comments indignantly about the audacity of a pavilion woman searching for her biological family. His buddy immediately tells him to shut his mouth and be very careful with his words, warning that the girl in question isn't just anybody. The guy explains to the crowd that she is a pure artist, full of talent and integrity, catching everyone's attention to hear the gossip. Telling the story passionately, he hypes up that the girl makes her living selling only her musical art, not her own body. Taking on the stance of a true storyteller, the man raises his hand and announces the young lady is on a desperate search for her lost father. Transporting the audience into the past, he narrates that it all happened during the brightly lit night of the Lantern Festival. Back then, the little girl was walking happily and smiling, holding tightly onto her old dad's hand. But fate played a cruel trick on the family, and a tragedy ended up tearing the two apart suddenly. Totally hypnotized by the beauty of a lantern that looked like a butterfly, the child got distracted and unknowingly let go of the patriarch's hand. Despair took over the man's face the second he noticed his daughter wasn't by his side anymore. The sight of that butterfly flying away was the girl's last peaceful memory before getting lost in the middle of the crowd. Wandering alone through the dark streets, the child called out for her dad exhaustively but never managed to find her way back. Now an adult, the beautiful woman laments bitterly with a heart full of longing, begging the heavens to see her relative one more time. The dramatic image on the poster reinforces all the weight of this sad story of abandonment. Touched by the emotional plot, several women in the crowd start crying, feeling incredibly sorry for the poor girl's situation. An elderly gentleman can't handle the emotion of the narrative and breaks down in tears right in front of everyone. Seeing the old man's sadness, an outsider wearing a bamboo hat tries to comfort the crier, guaranteeing the girl will surely find her family again. The storyteller clears his throat loudly to get the crowd's attention back, announcing that by a stroke of luck, there is one final clue. Pointing to the detailed drawing on the paper, he reveals that the patriarch left a unique jade plaque as proof of blood for his daughter. The public gets totally hyped about the gossip, swearing to help spread the news to reunite the shattered family. Watching it all from afar, the reincarnated youth celebrates, realizing the people's reaction is going wonderfully. Walking calmly through the crowd, he reflects that rumors travel super fast, so it's only a matter of time before the target shows up. Flaunting a massive ego, the little author brags about his own genius in creating such a perfect, tragic narrative. In his imagination, he can already picture the emotional scene of the two relatives hugging and crying after 20 years apart. Arriving at the meeting spot, the MC calls out to his honorary sister-in-law very excitedly. The criminal leader's gorgeous lover wipes the tears from her face, still heavily shaken by the gossip she just heard. Completely surprised, the young woman asks if all that tragedy told on the streets was really about her life. The girl confesses she has no memories of the separation, since by the time she was aware, she was already at the brothel learning to play an instrument. Showing a beautiful green jade ornament in her hands, she shatters the magic, explaining she didn't get that from her dad but rather from a random client. Full of trickery, the boy justifies that people love cheap drama, so he just stretched the truth a bit to grab attention. The chat is interrupted by the big guy's arrival, who drops off the sweets his beloved had asked for. Super happy with the treat, the girl thanks him for the snack while the little hero just watches the couple interact. Looking the boy up and down, the criminal leader keeps a somewhat suspicious attitude regarding this whole situation. The brute comments that he saw the posters and praises the kid's absurd talent for making up wild stories to win people over. Enjoying the sweet skewer, the hero tells his ally to chill, but the big guy demands results since he blew a fortune to spread the rumors. Without dropping his act, the young strategist guarantees with absolute certainty that they just need a tiny bit of patience for the real dad to show up. The bad guy stays quiet, showing that his concern for his beloved's well-being speaks way louder. Admitting the plan was well set up, the gang boss grumbles, wondering why he always feels like he's being manipulated by that child's smooth talking. Ignoring the complaint, the boy turns to the young woman and drops an unexpected invite, asking her to stay at the Beak Manor for a while. Caught off guard by the offer, she listens to his reasoning that staying in a safe house will stop scammers from trying to pass themselves off as her dad. Processing the info, Guak quickly realizes the scammer excuse is just a front, and the kid is actually offering protection from his very own criminal faction leader. Recognizing the real danger the woman is in, the big guy agrees right away and asks her to accept the stay at the manor. Trusting her man's decision fully, the beautiful lady accepts the invite, feeling very safe. Night soon falls over the city, bathing the Beak family's giant property in the silvery light of the moon. The green jade ornament rests on the wooden table, glowing softly in the dimness of the quiet room. Sitting with crossed arms in front of the object, the young master reflects alone on the latest events. With a cold and calculating stance, he concludes that the former courtesan probably has no clue about the weight that small amulet carries. Analyzing the piece carefully, the ex-vagabond realizes the stone is infused with internal energy, acting as a genuine protection talisman for children. He recalls the story told by the girl, where she explained she got the item from a random client while cleaning a restaurant. Back then, the mysterious old man placed the jewel in the little worker's hands, ordering her to carry it all the time. The eye-patch-wearing man was extremely strict with his warning, forbidding the little girl from selling the artifact under any circumstances. Even thinking it was weird to receive such an expensive gift from a stranger, the girl ended up keeping the stone simply because she thought the design was very pretty. Reading between the lines of that past interaction, the experienced warrior puts the puzzle pieces together in his mind. He knows the young lady grew up and kept wearing the necklace purely out of habit, believing it was just a harmless lucky charm. But holding the plaque in his hand, the hero is absolutely certain no one would give a jewel infused with pure energy to a random cleaner without a very strong reason. The boy's expression shifts as he concludes that the mysterious client could only be her true father watching her from afar. Suddenly, the young strategist's attention is drawn to the room's open window. Staying calm, he turns his face, sensing an unmistakable presence approaching in the dead of night. Outside, a heavy boot steps silently onto the roof tiles of the Beak family's property. Bathed in moonlight, the old man in the bamboo hat appears on the roof, revealing himself to be the martial world's great public enemy in person. Gripping the jade amulet, the MC gets up from his chair, deciding it is time to welcome the unwanted visitor. Overflowing with extreme confidence, the little master preps to face his new guest's dreaded biological father as an equal. The martial world's old public enemy faces the night, keeping an imposing stance under the moonlight. High up on the property's roof, the two stand face to face in an atmosphere of total suspense. The boy breaks the silence, commenting ironically that the old man must really enjoy the full moon. Hearing the taunt, the invader shoots a sharp glare at the kid. Showing zero fear, the little master keeps his posture completely relaxed and confident. Finding the situation funny, the gentleman replies that older folks usually need a lot less sleep. But the old man's tone quickly changes, asking what a growing child is doing awake in the middle of the night. Calmly, the reincarnated boy starts giving his excuse for this unusual meetup. Displaying the green jade ornament, he explains that the stone was shaking so much it ended up ruining all his sleep. To clear up any misunderstandings, the youth makes a point to note he borrowed the item with the owner's full permission. Seizing the moment, the MC formally introduces himself as the adopted son of the Beak Manor. Full of attitude, he states that the man already knew all this before breaking in, addressing the old guy by his dreaded criminal title. The master of disguises falls completely silent, absorbing that brat's impressive audacity. Visibly intrigued, the invader asks how he figured that out, but the boy shoots back, guaranteeing he knows a lot of other things too. Adopting a calculating posture, the ex-vagabond preps to lay out all the secrets of that man's past on the table. The true story reveals that the old man wasn't always a martial artist, having once been a brilliant craftsman focused on restoring relics. However, this exceptional talent ended up bringing the worst imaginable disaster into his peaceful life. 20 years ago, the situation was very different for his family. Back then, the craftsman worked with dedication, while his little daughter watched everything in awe. The man's wife wore a happy expression, praising her husband's incredible skill. They lived very humbly, working in a small antique shop in the area. With his lovely wife and cute daughter by his side, the man enjoyed quiet, peaceful day. Until one fine day, an aggressive hand slammed super hard onto his workbench. A rough-looking man interrupted his work, asking about the craftsman's famous restoration skills. It was a dangerous faction that ordered an exact replica of a fake treasure map. Having absolutely no clue about the group's true criminal intentions, the family man took the job and created the perfect forgery. He poured hours of meticulous effort into ensuring the map looked identical to the original. Using the forged document, the evil faction spread the map to lure various righteous warriors into a massive trap. Several martial artists fell for the trick, believing they were going after precious rewards. Upon arriving at the marked spot, the heroes were ambushed by a brutal attack orchestrated by the criminals. Completely defenseless against the cruel ambush, the family members ended up being eliminated without mercy. This terrible event became known to everyone as the massive tragedy of the Sword King's tomb. As time passed, the truth came out, bringing heavy consequences. The craftsman had to flee in the rain, carrying the terrible burden of having been the creator of the fake map. He ended up facing the full fury of the noble family that lost its great heirs in the trap. Unjustly branded as a public enemy, the old man lost his beloved wife and ended up separated from his only daughter amidst the chaos. Consumed by guilt for causing so many losses, the father vanished from the world without leaving a trace. The only thing he left for the little girl was that protection amulet, praying every day that she would stay safe. In the original timeline, the tragedy was even worse, as the young woman he tried so hard to protect ended up losing her life to the sect leader. However, the little strategist mentally guarantees that on this second chance, destiny will be completely different. Negotiating boldly, the boy promises to reunite father and daughter forever if the old man agrees to become the Beak family's great hidden force. Surprised by the proposal, the invader tells the kid to keep talking and reveal what else he has to say. The night wind hits the roof as the confrontational vibe between the two cools down a bit. Being very blunt, the ex-vagabond reveals he knows about the girl's secret romance, and that the criminal sect leader rejects this relationship. Wrapping up his logic, the youth states that the villainous patriarch is already making moves to permanently end the young woman's life. The shocking info catches the master of disguises entirely off guard. Outraged by the revelation, the old man asks if the faction is really planning to hurt his little girl. Keeping his cool, the boy makes things worse by revealing that the young woman is already suffering the effects of a dangerous poison planted by the villain. The criminal patriarch had been slipping small doses of toxins straight into the medicine the girl took every day. Boiling with hatred, the father realizes the enemy's intention was to slowly end her life in an undetectable way. Aware of the imminent danger, the invader adopts a dark posture and tells the little master to pay close attention to his words. The old man accuses the kid of luring him to the manor where his daughter is sheltered, just to use this illness as blackmail. Erupting with a terrifying red aura, the craftsman demands to know what that child's true intentions are. The crushing spiritual pressure takes over the roof, trying to force the boy to back down out of fear. But the ex-vagabond simply flashes a completely calm smile, ignoring the weight of that intimidation. Taking a firm step on the tile, the boy calls the old master's attention with a lot of respect. With a heavy motion, he scatters the energy in the area, guaranteeing he doesn't want any kind of misunderstanding between them. The invader is utterly bewildered seeing a mere child cancel out his pressure so easily. The MC declares that his only goal is to guarantee the couple's happy ending, and to have her biological father be a part of this new life. Sweating cold, the public enemy questions the true nature of that extraordinary boy. Still in shock, the old man wonders if that brat actually has the ability to fulfill such a massive promise. Giving an awkward laugh, the craftsman admits to himself that maybe he's getting too old for so many surprises. Accepting the situation, he claims he doesn't care about the morality of the plan and demands to know right away what the boy intends to do. With a mischievous smile, the little strategist confesses he will manipulate the local gangs so they destroy each other. For this grand trap to work perfectly, the youth warns he will need the invader's unique skills. The next day, the plan starts paying off inside the criminal faction's luxurious base. Getting the awful news, the brute falls into absolute despair upon discovering his beloved was poisoned. The criminal leader charges forward furiously, wanting to hunt down the culprit, but the boy tells him to chill, guaranteeing the young lady was cured in time. Analyzing the facts, the hero points out that the contamination happened way before she arrived at the manor, making the culprit's trail very obvious. The big guy feels the blow of betrayal, immediately realizing where all those undeniable proofs pointed. Grinding his teeth in pure disappointment, the bad guy wonders why his own father would try to end the life of his true love. The reincarnated boy explains that the patriarch probably wanted to eliminate the obstacle to force a more profitable political marriage. Putting on a serious look, the kid warns that playing the obedient son is no longer an option and demands a firm stance. Cornering his partner, the MC forces the big guy to choose between protecting his beloved or staying loyal to the wicked faction. The weight of the choice falls on the criminal's shoulders, who clenches his fist tightly, ready to kick off his revolt. The little strategist warns that, to the faction leader, the big guy is just a political tool to be used in an arranged marriage. Soon, the image of his beloved young woman fills the bad guy's mind, and he affectionately confesses that it's impossible to live without her. With an expression loaded with determination, Guak swears that no matter what anyone says, he will protect the woman at all costs. He reinforces once again that his life has absolutely zero meaning without her presence. Clenching his fist extremely hard, the criminal makes his final decision, declaring to the winds that he will shield his beloved from any danger. The boy observes his allies' imposing stance, realizing the seed of rebellion has finally sprouted. With a satisfied smile, the ex-vagabond internally celebrates the fact that his partner chose love over blind loyalty to the faction. Reflecting on the brute's nature, the youth understands that the only reason he didn't become completely corrupt was exactly because of the courtesan's pure influence. But analyzing the situation carefully, the MC knows that just running away won't be enough to bring them to the manor safely, deciding to add more fuel to the fire. Being very blunt, the boy asks if the criminal leader would actually let the two of them escape in peace, or if they'd spend the rest of their lives running like convicts. With that, he drops the heavy truth on his partner's shoulders, asking how long the young lady's fragile health would hold up against a routine of constant running. Boiling with anger at the truth, the gang leader grabs the kid, demanding he stop saying such scary things. With no patience for games, the big guy demands to hear the full plan immediately, perfectly recognizing that child's absurdly manipulative intelligence. Sweating cold at the intense reaction, HWI asks him to really calm down, mentally admitting that his partner gets terrifyingly sharp when the topic is his woman. Getting back his confident posture, the boy explains the strategy is simple, consisting of using the bad factions to destroy each other without getting their own hands dirty. Completely intrigued by the bold idea, the big guy wants to know how they are going to make that happen in practice. The youth reveals he plans to distribute a forged martial arts manual right to the rival gang's base. Shortly after, a henchman runs desperately through the enemy faction's hallways, calling for his boss. The Chingsa gang leader gets up annoyed by the yelling, asking the reason for so much commotion in the middle of the workday. Panting, the subordinate hands over an old book and announces that this is the perfect counterattack manual against the Hangzhou gang's main moves. The man's eyes widen, taking a huge scare at the unusual discovery. Looking closely at the pages, the criminal boss quickly realizes the content of that book is totally legit. Bubbling with excitement, he confirms the techniques are real and asks where the henchman got such a valuable relic. The employee reports that a mysterious master sent the manual as a gift, only asking that they take revenge on the rival faction in his name. Believing he is facing a stroke of luck sent from the heavens, the leader immediately orders the book to be copied and handed out to all his men. Taken over by greed, he decrees that the great moment to crush their archenemies once and for all has arrived. Night covers the city streets while the tension between the two biggest powers in the criminal underworld reaches its absolute limit. Fast, heavy footsteps break the silence of the dark alleys, announcing the arrival of danger. Driven by their new tactical advantage, the Chingsa gang members launch a brutal surprise attack against the rival's base without any prior warning. Even though the Hangzhou faction's forces are much larger in number, the tactical disadvantage quickly starts taking its toll on the battlefield. The invaders charge with extreme ferocity, wielding their heavy weapons against the enemy's defenses. The clash of blades echoes through the facility, showing the devastating impact of this nighttime ambush. Used to dominating the area, the defenders panic as they see their best moves being neutralized with extreme ease. One of the invaders shows off a victorious stance over his fallen opponent, proving the terrifying effectiveness of the manual they received. Knowing every single loophole in the rival martial arts perfectly, the invading group gains the upper hand in the fight in the blink of an eye. Chaos takes over the place, making the clash incredibly painful and draining for anyone trying to defend themselves. Outside, the doors of the neighborhood houses remain completely locked up for safety. With terror spread through the streets, all the residents avoid leaving their homes because of this intense war between the criminal groups. Watching the mess from a distance, the young strategist gives a satisfied smile seeing the two gangs plunged into a conflict with no turning back. Worried about the family's safety, Patriarch Beak gathers the kids in the courtyard and forbids any strolls through the city during that tense period. The dad makes sure to direct the warning straight at his adopted son, who simply agrees to the order, flashing an innocent smile. Turning his back to the Lord, the boy lets out a little laugh, pretending he has absolutely no blame for all that chaos that ruined the county's safety. Later, he overhears two scholars gossiping on the street about how the invading gang is cornering the old bosses of the turf. The men chat about the rumors of this hidden master, and the little MC walks past them internally celebrating the flawless success of his crazy plan. At the headquarters of the losing faction, the criminal leaders completely freak out trying to find a way out of the crisis. Keeping up his calm walk, the ex-vagabond deduces the enemies must already be terrified, trying to figure out how their secrets leaked. The truth is that these flaws were discovered by the warrior himself in his past life, after fighting these exact same thugs in hundreds of exhausting battles. With the help of the old craftsman's flawless forgery skills, he turned this knowledge into a fake book so the enemy side would take the first step of his grand scheme. Changing the setting, the boy approaches his dad and the butler, casually suggesting that the Beak family should step into the war to reap the benefits of the conflict. The bold idea catches the dad by surprise, who immediately asks how they could pull off a move like that. As a result of this strategy, the manor takes on the dangerous position of mediator, and the scene cuts to the grand pavilion controlled by the former power holders. Inside, the fight continues fiercely, with a member of the cornered faction taking a brutal hit that knocks him backward. The invaders laugh hard at the suffering of others, mocking the fact that the opponent's famous techniques are completely useless now. Oozing arrogance, the attacker's boss humiliates the rivals, wanting to know if they finally understand who runs the city. Spitting with hatred, the victims curse the aggressors while trying to stay on their feet amidst the destruction. Sweat drips down the cornered warrior's face as he panics, realizing that no matter what he does, his strikes are always blocked. Completely lost and with nowhere to run, he focuses solely on trying to survive the enemy's ruthless mockery. Showing absolutely no mercy, the invader lunges with his blade, telling the loser to quietly accept his sad end. But before the lethal blow could hit the target, another weapon appears out of nowhere to block the attack perfectly. Taking the front line in a spectacular way, the giant guac deflects the aggressor's blade without breaking a sweat. The invader backs off, spooked by the sudden impact, cursing the new opponent for meddling in his guaranteed win. Fallen on the ground, the member of the attacked faction recognizes his savior right away, feeling immense relief. With a fierce glare, the brute listens to his partner yell his name, while questioning the audacity of those entitled invaders. Absolutely furious, he demands respect and threatens to end everyone right there if they try to cause trouble for the important figure accompanying him. Faced with that crushing aura, the enemies start shaking and begging for mercy, recognizing the superior level of the master in front of them. However, a firm step breaks the group's fear, when one of the henchmen warns that brute force is useless if the moves are already known and predictable. Regaining their courage, the criminal crew challenges the hero to a fight, blindly trusting the nullification manual they received from their boss. The big guy feels the weight of that disadvantage for a moment, until he hears a tiny childish voice calling him with utter calmness. Appearing in the middle of that dangerous scene, the reincarnated boy introduces himself, flashing a smile full of confidence. The criminals are confused by the child's presence and threaten not to hold back, but the boy ironically replies asking them not to get worked up, because he's the one who will be taking it easy on the crew. Without dropping his smile, the little strategist warns that all these troublemakers are dead wrong about the current situation. In a quick move, he tosses a new book toward his giant ally to flip the game once and for all. Holding the relic up high, the criminal leader's eyes widen as he realizes the sheer magnitude of the material he just received. To wrap up his grand entrance, the ex-vagabond simply confirms that this is the promised knowledge, leaving all the thugs there completely speechless. To cut the tension, the young strategist shows off the book and announces that this is the perfect counterattack for the Chingsa gang's martial arts. With a sharp look, he decrees that the exact moment has arrived to flip the game and strike back against the ambush once and for all. The invaders' leader is completely lost by that sudden plot twist in the middle of the pavilion. One of the henchmen panics, asking if that pint-sized kid really holds the weakness to their techniques. Furious at the situation, the criminal boss tells the brat to stop making up lies and demands to know how he got that, but hears that copies are already scattered all over the streets. Keeping the stance of someone who owns the scene, the kid confirms the info with total naturalness and irony. The truth is he handed the secrets over to the Master of Disguises, who took charge of spreading the manuals all across the county super fast. Holding his own technique book, the invading brute starts sweating cold, processing the scale of the problem. However, he quickly tries to regain his composure, putting on an extremely arrogant and confident smile. Trusting his own strength, the invader argues that knowing the counterattack, victory will just depend on who moves first, and that an experienced master like him would never lose. At that, he tosses his own manual on the floor and challenges the opponent to direct combat without any fear. With zero patience, Guak steps up to the front line, promising to return all the humiliation his faction suffered with very high interest. Seeing the big guy charge with everything, the rival henchmen try to hype each other up so they don't back down at all. Watching the chaos brew, the MC keeps a satisfied smile seeing his plan working flawlessly. The narrative moves forward, confirming that the battlefield scenario turned upside down with the arrival of that new advantage. Motivated by the turnaround, the attacked gang members swear they won't just stand around taking free hits anymore. Exuding a scary aura, the boy's partner pushes forward, asking who's brave enough to be the first to fall. The rival boss steps back and sweats cold, feeling the absurd weight of that intimidation. Completely terrified by the enemy's power, the subordinates frantically ask what they should do now. Throwing more fuel on the fire, the kid suggests they should just run away right now, pulling an angry shout from the rival leader who tells him to shut his mouth. Internally, the ex-vagabond assesses that the invaders are completely lost, deciding it's the perfect time to advance to the next phase of the scheme. Catching everyone's attention in the pavilion, the little strategist asks for calm and warns he didn't go there to cause more fighting. Like a true peaceful mediator, he states he needs to show the harsh reality of the situation to both sides of the conflict. Starting with his partner's gang, the boy points out the real and brutal facts of the moment. He points out that even having the manual in hand, the group hasn't had time to learn anything yet, and only a massive talent like Guak could use the technique in the blink of an eye. On top of that, the boy reminds them that the pavilion is filled with wounded men, and continuing the fight would only bring even more irreparable losses. Hearing the flawless logic, the big guy calms down and completely agrees with the kid's analysis. Acknowledging that the warning makes total sense, the criminal leader steps back a bit, while the kid shifts his focus to the rival faction. Pressuring the invaders, the MC decrees they've lost their surprise advantage, and a clash now would cause devastating damage for the Chungsa gang too. Leaving the choice hanging, he asks if they really want to push for a fight, but the invader curses, asking what a brat knows about gang wars. Rejecting the logic, the invading boss yells that his faction would never back down from a mission in such a humiliating way. The tiny mediator lets out a long sigh at so much stubbornness and lack of vision. Shooting a cold look, the boy throws it in the thug's face that he is really dumb for not understanding the true gravity of that problem. Being highly educational, the kid reveals that the manual has already become a craze on the city streets, falling into the hands of anyone who knows how to read around there. He makes a point to remind the bad guy how things and betrayals work in that treacherous county. Planting the seed of paranoia perfectly, the MC asks if the man seriously thinks that faction is their only enemy in the area. Desperate, the invader deduces that the Gaijin gang must also have the manual in hand, receiving a cheerful confirmation from the boy. Explaining the trap, the youth details that the other rivals just need to wait for the two sides to eliminate each other right there, to invade their main turf with zero resistance. To humiliate him completely, he guarantees that if even a child figured this out, the other criminal leader has already set up this exact plan too, leaving the invader sweating cold with dread. In the middle of this tense and silent vibe, firm footsteps echo, announcing the arrival of a very important presence. A calm and respectable voice fills the pavilion, proposing to solve that stalemate in a completely different way. The criminals turn their heads immediately to identify who had the audacity to interrupt the argument. Walking in an imposing manner, the patriarch of the Beak family appears on the scene, instantly recognized by the very frightened thugs. The boy finds the Lord's sudden presence odd, but quickly gets into character and celebrates his dad's arrival at the perfect moment. Using all his influence in the region, the master of the manor argues that fighting will only bring mutual destruction and asks both sides to back down out of respect for him. To seal the peace deal, the Lord personally guarantees the safety of both factions, using the weight and honor of his family's name. With nowhere to run or ways to argue, the invader's boss lets out a heavy sigh of defeat. Analyzing the brilliant play, Guak realizes this peaceful intervention puts the two biggest powers of the underworld in a massive debt of gratitude to the Beak Manor. Slowly, the big guy turns his face, confused, to stare at the meddling kid beside him. The bad guy is amazed, deducing the brat planned to use his dad's fame as a shield right from the start, while the boy just winks, confirming all his trickery. Yielding to the diplomatic pressure, the boy's partner accepts the official mediation, receiving a direct compliment for the wise choice. Right after, the patriarch demands a final and quick answer from the enemy group. Swallowing his pride hard, the rival boss also lowers his head before the Lord and accepts the terms proposed by the family. Highly satisfied with the outcome of the talk, the Lord thanks all the warriors present in the pavilion for their cooperation. Adopting a stricter and more authoritative tone, the master demands that in the future, neither faction causes trouble near his grand property. On top of that, he makes the thugs promise to leave innocent civilians completely out of their dirty conflicts. The little strategist watches the scene with a huge smile, knowing his dad's flawless reputation would be the perfect final card. With peace restored, the kid asks his dad to go on ahead, warning he needs to discuss a few details about his partner's beloved, getting permission to return late. After the rivals leave, the MC turns to the big guy, ready to handle the final details of all that chaos he himself created. But before he could finish his excited sentence, the boy is pulled roughly, getting a massive scare from his partner. Suspended in the air by the grumpy big guy, the kid has no idea what caused that sudden aggression. The ally drops him back on the floor, asking for the next steps, since the war part had ended exactly as the brat planned. Adjusting his own clothes, the bad guy admits he normally would have destroyed all the enemies right there, but held back his urge because of their scheme. Rubbing his tired face, he points out that the counterattack manual handed over is completely real, and asks if that was also part of the grand plan. Staring at the child very seriously, the criminal states it's impossible for a brat to have created such complex techniques, demanding to know who is behind this entire shady operation. The ex-vagabond gives a smirk, admitting internally that his partner isn't as dense as he looks for figuring out that logic. Playing it mysterious, the boy refuses to reveal his source's name, but promises he'll make introductions soon, reminding him that the hidden person has a very deep connection with the big guy. The sun begins to set on the distant horizon, bathing the pavilion in an orange glow that marks the end of that insane day of scheming. The brute scratches his chin, totally confused, trying to jog his memory to figure out who this mysterious figure he's connected to could be. Pointing his finger very suspiciously, he asks if it's not some enemy trying to set him up, but hears that the kid's only intention is to guarantee the couple's happy ending. Asking for a vote of confidence, the little master cynically asks if he has ever done anything to harm the big guy since they met. The gang leader grumbles in annoyance, reluctantly admitting that the brat's predictions always end up being perfectly correct. But a snap of reality hits the brute's mind, and his eyes widen as he asks if he was manipulated like a mere puppet this whole time. Faking an angelic innocence, the young strategist just gives a cute smile, asking what he is talking about. Breaking the mask, the boy ironically asks if his partner only realized the manipulation now, while the bad guy tries to save his own pride, muttering that it would be impossible for a grand leader like him to be played for a fool by a simple child. Annoyed by the situation, the criminal leader yells, wanting to know if the kid has a problem with him. At that, the boy throws his hands up, denying any bad intentions and claiming he would never have problems with his great partner. Huffing in frustration, the big guy looks away and decides to focus on what really matters, demanding to know what the next step of the plan was. Guak's mind drifts back to the instructions he received, recalling the moment the boy ordered him to deliver that object for the rival gang to train with. The object in question is an old book with a worn cover that rests on the lit table. Oozing a highly confident posture, the young strategist explains that this manual contains the perfect counterattack for their faction's main technique. The story jumps back to a few nights ago under a starry sky. Walking silently across the dark roof, the MC was getting ready to meet his key piece. A cup of tea and the fake manual are placed side by side, signaling the start of that nighttime negotiation. Staring into the darkness, the old craftsman asks if the kid's grand plan for the faction's mutual destruction was really that. Sitting comfortably on the tiles across from the elderly man, the ex-vagabond agrees with the deduction. Hyped about his own strategy, the boy details that first, they would hand the Hongyo gang's manual over to the rivals. This simple action would make the enemy group find the scrolls and gain absurd confidence to make a move. Trusting this advantage, the invaders would launch a direct and fierce attack against the territory owners. Explaining the climax of the trap, the kid says that right when the battle seemed decided, they would scatter the invaders' counterattack through the streets. As the final result, all the other smaller factions would seize the golden chance and push forward with everything to collect the price of that arrogance. Listening to the whole scheme, the old master lets out a light chuckle, finding the idea pretty interesting. Holding the book in his hands, he admits the plan sounds great, but questions how viable it actually is to pull off. The craftsman analyzes the cover of the fake relic in absolute silence. Pointing into the air, the boy explains that for the scheme to work, the techniques must be perfectly real, because even second-rate fighters can spot a fake. Completely shocked by this info, the elderly man asks where the heck the kid got such accurate techniques. The little strategist keeps an unshakable posture in the face of the questioning. A mysterious expression loaded with mischief appears on the youth's face under the shadows of the night. Without blinking, the MC reveals that he was the one who created all those moves. The revelation hits the master of disguises hard, leaving him unable to believe what he just heard. Annoyed by the answer, the old man accuses the brat of mocking him and asks if this is the plot of some cheap novel, but the boy swears he is telling the absolute truth. Evaluating the situation mentally, the ex-vagabond concludes the craftsman is the core piece of the plan, and that trying to fool him would only bring more trouble. Knowing he needs to earn the man's trust, he decides to reveal a little of his secret, even knowing the reincarnation story would never be accepted. Sweating cold to find a plausible excuse, the boy thinks fast for a less bizarre way out. Striking an exaggerated high-energy pose, the boy opens his arms and declares to the winds that he is a supreme genius living his second life. The elderly man's face freezes in an expression of absolute disbelief at that absurd justification. An awkward silence takes over the roof while the two just stare at each other without saying a single word. The wind blows, bringing the feeling that the joke wasn't the least bit funny to the invader. Desperate to break the weird vibe, the boy gives a nervous laugh and reinforces that he's just a kid pretending to be a grand master, so he doesn't embarrass himself. Ignoring the flawed acting, the old man's wrinkled hand firmly closes the manual. The elderly man murmurs thoughtfully, carefully evaluating the proposal he just received. He warns the young master that he took the joke too far and decides he'll pretend he didn't hear that genius nonsense. Getting serious again, the man guarantees that once the dust settles, the Beak family will welcome him and his daughter as guests of honor. With that, the craftsman stands up high on the roof, while the boy follows his movements from below. Radiating friendliness, the MC confirms they will need to use fake names, but guarantees the martial world will never hunt them again if the manor's lord vouches for their identities. Explaining the biggest perk of the deal, the boy highlights that the man will finally leave his fugitive life behind and will be able to live in peace by the young woman's side. Hearing this promise hits the old man right in the heart, making his eyes well up with pure emotion. The image of a peaceful future reading books in the company of his beloved daughter invades the weary fugitive's mind. Looking at the night horizon, he bitterly regrets having been cornered as a public enemy and forced to abandon his only little girl 20 years ago. The boy listens to the melancholic vent, keeping an empathetic and completely silent gaze. Adopting a determined look, the gentleman guarantees he would do anything to spend his final years being called father, praising the kid's talent for making offers he can't refuse. Satisfied with the answer, a victorious and malicious look takes over the little strategist's features. The boy praises his ally's quick ability to catch on, while the old man asks what he needs to do, doubting the job is just forging old books. Putting on a lethal stance, the ex-vagabond reveals the real job is to attack and take down the great leader of the Hongyo faction. Detailing the order in a scary tone, he demands the craftsman beat the bad guy brutally, but spare his life in the end. The boy coldly adds that destroying the criminal patriarch's internal energy center will be punishment enough. Trying to hide his strength, the elderly man argues he is just a book restorer and couldn't handle the crime boss, but the kid counters by asking how a weak man could survive being hunted for 20 years. Cornered by the flawless logic, the master of disguises raises his hand in a very mysterious way. Giving a respectful bow full of mockery, the MC thanks him in advance and says he's fully counting on the gentleman's skills. The old ally stays quiet, processing the massive mess he just got himself into. With his eyes glowing a reddish hue under the hat's brim, he grumbles that the young master knows exactly how to put an elderly man in a very tight spot. The night's calm returns to rule the county, marking the passing of a few days after the end of the conflict and the arrival of the mediated gang's reward. A luxurious chest is opened, revealing a stupid amount of 10,000 shiny silver coins. The manor's staff starts unloading box after box full of wealth into the lit property. Shocked by the fortune, the butler follows the young master down the halls, asking what they would do with all that money. Pushing the wooden door open with confidence, the boy decrees that the plan is to buy a famous inn and turn it into a huge business for the family. The grand structure of the Hoyong Pavilion stands out in the city, being the main target of the boy's new capitalistic ambition. Flaunting a visionary look, the reincarnated youth claims that grand establishment would be the most perfect acquisition for them. The shine of the piled-up silver lights up the whole room, proving that financial resources are no longer an issue. Crying out of pure happiness, the old butler clasps his hands in awe and confesses he hasn't seen so much wealth together in years. In a fit of euphoria, the servant celebrates that they will finally be able to pay back wages, clear debts, and fix the manor's holy roof. Treating the boy like a true deity, the employee bows emotionally, declaring he was a miracle sent by the heavens. Unable to hold his tongue, the old man complains that the house's lord only knows how to give everything away in the name of chivalry, and tries to hug the boy, who desperately runs away asking for space. In the middle of this mess, the family patriarch clears his throat loudly, announcing his presence in the corner of the room. The butler freezes in terror immediately, realizing the lord heard absolutely all his complaints about bad management. Breaking the tension with a good laugh, the dad agrees that martial honor is essential, but admits they really need to start thinking about the family's coffers. Changing the subject quickly to save the employee's skin, the boy reminds the butler about the idea of buying the commercial establishment. Getting his act together, the servant happily agrees that the chosen inn has the best chef in the area and very loyal customers, praising the boy's nose for the market. A very cunning expression takes over the MC's face, as he ironically considers not knowing if the current owner would be willing to sell the place that easily. The lord and the butler pay close attention, while the young strategist asks them to leave all the boring negotiation in his hands. Giving a thumbs up full of trickery, the ex-vagabond reveals that, by a huge twist of fate, he is already extremely close to the owner of that coveted pavilion. Cutting straight to the chase, the boy approaches his giant partner in front of the luxurious pavilion. Without stalling, he asks if the criminal leader would sell that establishment for 10,000 silver coins. The brute scratches the back of his neck, processing the absurd request he just heard. Completely confused, he tries to understand if the kid really wants to buy the. Losing his patience, the bandit grabs the child's head with intense brutality. Taken by anger, he asks if the boy thinks that profitable place is some cheap toy to be handed over so easily. Very calmly, the little strategist warns that this is exactly why he wants to put the bad guy's beloved in charge of the business. The genius proposal hits the big guy right on target, while the ex-vagabond internally celebrates how easy it was to convince his ally. A calculating look full of mischief takes over the reincarnated youth's face. Later on, the orange light of dusk illuminates all the grandeur of the coveted pavilion. Far from there, a golden statue decorates the interior of the criminal faction's main base. The organization's grand leader yells indignantly upon discovering his son sold the establishment for such a low amount. Cursing his own heir as a fool, the patriarch demands to know if he has any idea of the fortune that place generated every year. Guak listens to the heavy scolding, maintaining a stiff posture in front of the boss. In a very serious tone, the subordinate calls his old father's attention. Without showing any hesitation, he extends his hand, holding a very old-looking book. The criminal patriarch gets a massive shock, recognizing the item immediately. The revealed object is nothing less than the perfect manual to cancel out the weakness of their gang's martial arts. Asked about the relic's origin, the big guy lies blatantly, claiming he used the coins from the sale to buy the book. The excuse pleases the old leader, who lets out an excited laugh, praising his son's brilliant move. Very proud, the boss confesses he knew the heir would straighten up and forget about that former courtesan. To make things worse, he comments on the rumors of the girl getting close to the lord of the Beak family, claiming women like her have zero loyalty. Boiling with hatred under the surface, the brute clenches his fist extremely hard upon hearing those slanders. Noticing the sudden movement, the elderly man asks if there is something wrong with the young man. The criminal leader demands to know what that aggressive behavior was all about. Hiding his anger, Guak steps back and says it was absolutely nothing. Not caring about the awkward vibe, the patriarch plans to use the new manual to crush their enemies for good. Feeding his dad's ambition, the young bandit guarantees they will become the greatest force in the region. The sun keeps shining brightly over the merchant city's beautiful structures. While chaos rules the underworld, calmness reigns absolute over the main facade of the Beak Manor. After mediating the dispute between the bandits, the righteous family's reputation reached unimaginable levels of respect. Through the county streets, residents walk peacefully, chatting about the end of the turmoil. Local commerce went back to operating at full force, returning life to the area. At the door of the grand property, a humble worker insists on delivering a thank you gift. The man explains they grew the produce themselves and begs them to accept the offering. Right after, an elderly man emotionally shares that his son only survived an attack because he sought refuge at the manor. The locals start causing a friendly scene, threatening to call the family heartless if they refuse the gifts. Looking at the mountain of products, the old butler reports the arrival of more donations for his lords. The house's leader assesses the situation, realizing the humble folks just want to show sincere gratitude. With great wisdom, the patriarch decides to accept the treats, with the intention of redistributing everything to those in need later. Looking at his adopted son, he asks if the boy is willing to help with this beautiful task. Super excited about the peaceful mission, the little MC agrees right away. But while light and prosperity embrace the manor, the faction's territory burns in a brutal war. The ruthless clash stains the city streets during that violent night. Ordering a full-scale attack, the criminals scream, demanding their subordinates defend the turf at any cost. During the biggest crisis ever seen, the smaller groups massacre the faction that previously ruled the top of the power ladder. Because all the gangs got their hands on the counterattack manual, the former bosses of the area were defeated rapidly. The pages of the fake relic burn in the fire, symbolizing the end of that criminal organization. Annoyed by the survivors' audacity, the main faction's grand leader reads a challenge from one of the smaller groups. One of the henchmen warns in terror that someone leaked the secrets of all the martial arts in the region to cause that bloodbath. Boiling with hatred, the villainous patriarch screams that he is already fully aware of this trap. In an attempt to maintain control, he decrees they just need to stop the enemy's advance for the mysterious plan to fail. Crumpling the notice in his hands, he notes that his old rivals have been totally wiped off the board. A look loaded with pure greed and malice shines on the criminal's face. Trusting his own strength, he guarantees his gang will be the only one left to rule over the entire county. Sprinting through the dark forest, the crew of bandits sets off on a quest to dominate the rest of the territory. Suddenly, a firm footstep in the middle of the path forces the cavalry to hit the brakes hard. The faction leader pulls the reins, sensing a very dangerous presence blocking the way. Lit only by the moon, the old master of disguises waits peacefully in the middle of the trail. The bad guy's horse stops completely in front of that solitary and mysterious figure. Keeping his guard up, the criminal patriarch assesses the tense situation. With his face hidden under the bamboo hat, the craftsman announces that they have finally met. The animal whinnies restlessly while the bandits try to understand what is going on. One of the henchmen yells, asking who dares to stand in the way of that armed troop. Oozing arrogance, the subordinate accuses the outsider of being crazy for blocking their boss's path. The gang leader narrows his eyes, realizing that gentleman is no ordinary person. Unleashing devastating spiritual pressure, the elderly man blankets the entire forest with his purple. A cold and relentless look takes over the tired features of the great public enemy. Sweating cold, the villain panics as he feels the crushing weight of that absurd power. Faced with real danger, the criminal boss desperately orders his men to eliminate the target immediately. Drawing their axes and swords, the subordinates agree and charge at the solitary man. In the blink of an eye, the old master dashes forward, cutting through the wind with impressive speed. Gathering his energy into the palms of his hands, he preps a devastating attack against the crew. The violent impact of the strike shatters the night's silence, generating a terrifying shockwave. With absolutely zero chance to defend, the henchmen are thrown far away, screaming in pain after taking the ruthless attack. The brutal impact leaves deep marks, while the dust settles, revealing the public enemy's true strength. Terrified by the absurd power, the surviving henchmen beg their leader for help. The criminal boss is in shock, realizing his best warriors were wiped off the map with a single strike. Cold sweat drips down the villainous patriarch's face as he finally understands the level of the monster he is facing. With no other way out, the big guy charges with everything, using all his dark energy to try and flip the game. With impressive agility, the craftsman leaps high into the air, perfectly dodging the lethal blow that hits the horse instead. The missed attack leaves the leader totally destabilized and vulnerable to the elderly man's movements. Desperate, the bad guy yells, asking who sent that eliminator, suspecting the rival gang is behind this. Coming down with crushing force, the master of disguises coldly warns that the bandit doesn't need to know the answers. The devastating blow hits the criminal's energy center dead on, making him scream in agony as he feels his core being completely destroyed. A colossal explosion of energy sweeps the area, marking the final end of that nighttime battle. Fallen and completely defeated, the faction patriarch spits up, unable to even breathe properly. Trembling heavily, he tries to lift his head, dealing with the unbearable pain of having lost all his martial strength forever. Panic dominates the bandit's mind as he realizes his entire body is paralyzed and useless. Keeping his imposing stance, the old craftsman declares he will spare the bad guy's life, fulfilling the order he received from the boy. The gentleman admits he'd love to finish the bandit off for good because of his past crimes, but backs down because of his promise. As a final punishment, the master demands the criminal spends the rest of his days suffering and bitterly regretting his actions. Consumed by anger and humiliation, the bad guy tries to mumble curses, feeling the weight of his defeat. Ignoring the furious yells, the outsider turns his back and vanishes into the darkness of the forest. Walking away, the elderly man fondly reflects that now he can finally offer a peaceful life to his daughter. The memory of his wife and the longing for the young woman fill the craftsman's heart with deep hope. A few days pass since that decisive clash that changed the destiny of the county's underworld. Inside the peaceful manor, the reincarnated youth devours a bowl of food, flashing a giant, satisfied smile. Across the table, Guak stares at the child with a very suspicious and bothered expression. The big guy grumbles that this exaggerated joy is killing his appetite, but the boy shoots back full of fake sweetness that he's just happy to see his partner. Internally, the little strategist celebrates the absolute success of his trap, acknowledging the old craftsman's flawless acting. Without the strength of their leader, who ended up paralyzed in bed, the main faction plunged into internal chaos, fighting over who would take power. Due to this total disorder, the criminal crew weakened and was forced to abandon the region forever. With that, the former rival groups that also lost everything had already been totally wiped off the map. Leaving only the last gang, they decided to go into hiding out of fear, marking the devastating fall of all the major crime forces. A true and very welcome peace finally takes over all the commercial streets of the county. The boy is thrilled with the perfect result, knowing the Beak family's reputation as a fair mediator is going to reach legendary levels. Adopting his calculating look, the ex-vagabond focuses on his next big goal. The strategy now is to recruit the brute to the side of justice for good, making him an official ally of the manor. Catching the big guy's attention, the boy cuts straight to the chase and suggests he should join their family once and for all. The criminal almost chokes on the sudden proposal and asks where the kid got this crazy idea. Keeping his dark nature, Guak suggests he'd rather take down his own faction brothers to seize absolute leadership. The silence that follows shows that even the bad guy realizes the heavy weight of that ambition. Staring at his partner with disapproval, the boy makes it clear he didn't like that violent suggestion one bit. The little strategist firmly warns he has absolutely no intention of allowing that bloody path. The ally fires back while grabbing his food, asking if the kid just prefers to accept things the way they are. In a sudden and very fast motion, an unexpected action completely shatters the tranquility of that meal. An attacker hidden in the shadows attempts a surprise strike, but ends up being quickly neutralized by the big guy. The weapon thrown by the invader ends up harmlessly stuck in the wooden structure. Annoyed by the harassment, the brute gets up from the table complaining that the faction's enemies already found them at that hideout. The boy points out that even if his partner doesn't want war, the other candidates for succession won't stop sending attackers. Boiling with hatred, the bad guy yells that he already turned down the leadership, but the boy argues that greedy men never believe in peaceful withdrawals. Cornering his ally, the young master gives two clear options: keep fighting to the end on the streets or become a respectable husband protected by the manor. The criminal leader scratches his neck, wondering if the righteous family would actually accept a thug like him. Highlighting his past, the big guy reminds him that everyone knows his dirty reputation, and that the region's underworld is practically extinct. With flawless smooth talking, the boy guarantees that without active gangs, no one is going to care about this change of sides. To close the deal, he reveals that the family lord himself has already agreed to welcome the ex-criminal with open arms. Confirming the story, the patriarch smiles benevolently, stating it's an honor to help someone leave a life of crime. Bewildered by how easy the process is, the brute hears the lord decree that he must wash his own name following their code of honor. Adopting an extremely authoritative and noble stance, the master of the house makes his official demand. The rule imposed is to perform at least one good deed per day, promising the position of pavilion master as a reward for his effort. The grandeur and confidence of those words deeply touch the ex-bandit's rough heart. Clenching his fists with unshakable firmness, he accepts his new destiny once and for all. Kneeling in total submission, the warrior abandons his bloodthirsty title and swears eternal loyalty to the Beak family. Exuding honor, he promises to dedicate his entire life to fulfilling the noble mission he just received. With this oath, the problematic big guy becomes an official and respected member of the grand property. Days pass and joy fills the atmosphere as fast footsteps echo down the halls. Super excited, the little youngest girl jumps with happiness, cheering that they are going for a walk on the street with her favorite new guest. Full of energy, the little girl runs through the market, demanding sweets, toys, and accessories non-stop. Gently pulling on the girl's sleeve, the reincarnated boy asks her to calm down a bit. Taking on the older brother stance, he argues that she promised to stay close to him so she wouldn't get lost in the crowd. The ex-bandit's young beloved flashes a radiant and extremely healthy smile while accompanying the kids. The ex-vagabond remembers that this special outing is precisely to celebrate the formerly sick young lady's total recovery. The other little brother tries to scold her about spending money, but soon gives in to his little sister's charm, wanting to buy everything for her. Watching the family's chaotic scene, the MC sighs, calling the group's attention. Side by side, the boy and the brute watch all that genuine happiness from afar. The little strategist comments with great satisfaction on how good it is to see the young woman radiating so much vitality again. With eyes full of emotion, the warrior confesses he thought the world had ended when he heard about the poison. Comforting his friend, the boy guarantees the righteous manner is, and always will be the best possible sanctuary for both of them. The beautiful girl interrupts the serious moment by hugging the little girl, demanding sweets, and confirming their new life just became perfect. The youngest little girl pulls her brother, picking up the pace through the busy market. Observing the girl's excitement, the reincarnated boy jokes that the sister-in-law recovered a little too well from that health scare, while the big guy chimes in saying he's going to want to buy something too. But at that moment the boy turns his head, noticing something is missing from the group. He asks where the most important person of this trip went, realizing the young woman and his little sister are already at the sweet skewer stall. In an alley nearby, a silent footstep breaks the hustle of the lit-up street. The old craftsman watches the family hidden in the dark shadows of the shops. The boy quickly spots the gentleman's presence, remembering when he invited him the day before, guaranteeing the family would have a fun outing. Seeing his daughter smile from afar, the elderly man shows a serene and peaceful expression. The big guy praises his beloved, stating what a beautiful woman she has become, filling the hidden father's heart with immense pride. Satisfied with the pleasant scene, the master of disguises turns his back, deciding to leave quietly. However, the ex-vagabond appears behind him, stating he already expected this cowardly attitude. The little strategist asks if the man made all the effort to come to the center of the city just to turn around. Being very direct, the boy tells the craftsman to take advantage of arriving at the right time and go talk to his own daughter right now. Holding the brim of his bamboo hat, the elderly gentleman hesitates, totally at a loss for words. A guilt-ridden look takes over the wrinkled face of the former fugitive. Explaining his massive pain, the old man confesses he has no right to call himself a father after causing the girl so much suffering in the past, feeling too ashamed to show up in front of her now. He melancholically assures that just watching her from afar is more than enough for his tired old heart. The reincarnated youth looks at his ally, keeping a totally understanding expression. Wasting no time, the boy throws it in his face that this is exactly why he needs to stay by her side to make up for lost time, asking if the old man wants the girl to get married without her family at the altar. Appealing to the emotional side, the little master asks if the craftsman has any idea of the massive sadness a bride feels celebrating her wedding completely alone. Besides that, the boy argues that if the brute ever tries to hurt the young woman in the future, it will be the father's duty to set his son-in-law straight using brute force. Hearing his own name from afar, the criminal leader turns his head while carrying the boy's little sister on his shoulders. Totally offended by the insinuation, the ex-bandit erupts with a threatening aura, yelling that he will spend his entire life worshipping his beloved woman. Startled by the outburst, the old master tells the big guy to calm down and leave the boy alone, while the groom tries to justify he was just playing with the kid. Watching that awkward, lively interaction, the elderly gentleman lets out a soft sigh. The image of his daughter smiling under the sunlight takes over the emotional old father's vision. Suddenly, the young woman turns her head, noticing a weird commotion nearby. Mustering his courage, the master of disguises steps out of the alley and stops right in front of the small group in the middle of the street. Panic overtakes the craftsman in the blink of an eye, thinking he made a terrible mistake and needs to run away right now before causing a mess in her life. But before he could take a single step back, the young woman steps forward and hugs the old man extremely tight, calling him dad. The impact of the unexpected hug leaves the elderly gentleman entirely paralyzed with shock. Stuttering with emotion, the man asks how his daughter managed to recognize him after so many years separated by cruel fate. With tears in her eyes, she confirms it by remembering the man who gave her the jade plaque in her childhood, revealing that deep down she always knew the truth. The young woman confesses she memorized his protective look, seeing in those tired eyes the warmth of the father she missed her whole life. Returning the hug with affection, the craftsman listens as the girl says she never took the amulet off, following his old safety advice. Trying to ease the old man's guilt, she guarantees she didn't suffer that much thanks to the help of good people, and that her only real pain was missing him deeply. Holding the gentleman's calloused hand, the girl begs him not to try and run away now that they have finally reunited. Flashing a beautiful smile, she asks for the chance to stay by his side and fulfill her role as a truly devoted daughter. The old fugitive just cries in silence, calling out his beloved girl's name. Squeezing her hands very firmly, the master of disguises swears he will never abandon her again. The emotional reunion seals the final piece between the two right in the middle of the busy street. From afar, the little MC watches the touching scene, feeling his duty is done. The family's youngest approaches her older brother, stating that this reunion is very beautiful. Internally, the boy celebrates that the young woman and the old craftsman managed to escape their cruel destinies to start over. But when the kid reflects that the big guy finally found peace, an exaggerated noise completely breaks his concentration. The ex-criminal leader cries loudly, crushing the boy in a tight hug, yelling with happiness that his beloved found her family. Still crying heavily, the big guy bows, calling the craftsman father-in-law and swearing to dedicate his whole life to making the young woman very happy. Evaluating the embarrassing scene, the reincarnated boy finds it funny seeing such a dangerous warrior melting like butter in front of his new family member. The group starts walking through the city streets again, proving the power of love is truly something transformative. A celebratory vibe takes over the gigantic Beak Manor, with flower petals falling through the clearing. Outside, the commoners gossip in confusion about the wedding happening there, since the family's kids are still way too young. One of the residents explains to the crowd that the ceremony isn't for the main family. The luxurious wedding is being held to celebrate the official union of the rehabilitation pavilion's new master. Dressed as a bride, the beautiful woman flashes a radiant smile, walking toward her long-awaited happy ending. The big guy holds her hands with extreme gentleness, proving all his love and respect. Completely emotional, the ex-bandit blushes, unable to hold back his tears on the most important day of his life. Taking advantage of the moment, the boy starts teasing his ally, telling him to close his mouth because his smile is so huge, it's going to tear the big guy's face apart. Annoyed by the taunt in front of everyone, the groom yells, calling the kid a disrespectful brat. Sitting at the table of honor, the old craftsman wears an expression full of peace as he watches the lively party. The father mentally confesses he never imagined living long enough to give his beloved girl away at the altar. The elderly man comments to the house's matriarch that he can now pass away with no regrets, but the woman shoots back, reminding him he'll need to babysit his future grandkids. She smiles, adding that the master also has the vital job of keeping his son-in-law in line, stating it's way too early to think about saying goodbye. Agreeing with those kind words, the old man nods, showing a very peaceful smile. The family's mother celebrates being able to witness such a beautiful blessing, guaranteeing that even happier days wait for them in the future. The youngest little girl watches the ceremony with her eyes shining with pure fascination and joy. Mesmerized by the beauty of the moment, she whispers about how pretty the bride looks in that luxurious, traditional red dress. The boy tries to correct his sister's posture in the chair, but the little girl just ignores the scolding, praising the newlyweds' beauty. The girl's innocence overflows when she asks if she will also get to wear wonderful clothes like that at her own wedding one day. The child's cute smile makes the ex-vagabond dive into an ocean of very deep memories. In his past life, that sweet girl's destiny was marked by a lot of suffering as she tried to treat her parents' incurable illness, never having time for her own joy. The weight of this grim future makes the MC look down with a lot of tenderness and determination. Shaking off the sadness, he affectionately pats her head, guaranteeing with absolute certainty that she will have her big day. The little strategist personally promises that he will organize the richest and most spectacular ceremony ever for his favorite little sister. The little girl jumps out of her chair, celebrating her older brother's luxurious and loving promise. The party continues, full of affection and laughter, marking a perfect and highly prosperous new beginning for every member of that grand family. Super excited about the promise, the youngest agrees, full of joy. The little strategist promises himself he will change the miserable destiny from his past life and make everyone in the family very happy. A few days pass after the ex-criminal's grand wedding to the young woman. The vibe at the large property returns to a much more peaceful and quiet routine. During an important meeting, the family patriarch firmly rejects an unexpected offer. Facing the old craftsman, the leader of the house asks the meaning behind that sudden gesture. Keeping a very serious posture, the master of disguises insists that the Lord accepts his gift. Firmly, he pushes the old, time-worn books to the center of the table. The patriarch asks him to hold on, totally bewildered by what he's seeing. Reading the titles of the legendary manuals, he realizes in shock that those are his family's true secret martial arts. Confirming the suspicion, the elderly gentleman agrees that the techniques originally belonged to the Beak Manor. The man details that large chunks of this knowledge were lost a long time ago, leaving the teachings incomplete. Because of that, all the following generations had to dedicate their entire lives trying to restore what was erased. Speechless, the MC's dad tries to process the magnitude of that moment. Still in disbelief over the historical find, he asks how an outsider managed to get his hands on those lost treasures. With a melancholic look, the old ally warns that this explanation is part of a long story from his youth. The elderly man's memories go back to a very dark and rainy time in the middle of a forest. He narrates that back in the day, he ended up getting lost in the martial world with nowhere to go. Consumed by despair, the young fugitive saw no way out of his daily suffering. At that, a mysterious master in a bamboo hat appeared before him, offering a new path. Thanks to this twist of fate, the craftsman ended up walking through the dreaded gates of the ghost faction. Detailing the incident, He explains that his master collected ancient martial arts and ended up obtaining the Beak family's original techniques. But time passed, wiping away those memories, until destiny brought him back to deliver the knowledge. Feeling the weight of his old age, the elderly gentleman reinforces that he wants to return the manuals as a token of gratitude for saving his beloved daughter. The patriarch shoots back immediately, stating that helping people in need is simply the duty of any righteous warrior. Rubbing his tired face, the Lord points out that the world is cruel, and that's why he would never accept such a valuable payment for something simple. Flashing a wise look, the craftsman guarantees the young woman is the most precious thing in the world to him. Taking advantage of the opening, the ex-vagabond nudges his dad, demanding he accept the books that rightfully belong to the family already. Watching the elderly ally, the boy processes all those revelations from the past. The little strategist finally understands how the old man survived the manhunt by using the deadly assassination techniques of that dangerous sect. Pushing the negotiation, the kid tells the house leader to drop the formalities and just accept the gift already. Arguing that refusing will only make the gentleman and the girl uncomfortable, he immediately gets the backing of the disguised old man. Cornered by the two of them, the patriarch finally yields to the pressure and lowers his guard. A smile of immense relief appears on the manor master's face. Touching the old pages, he emotionally confesses he won't have to feel ashamed in front of the family's great ancestors anymore. Holding the sacred knowledge, the Lord declares the clan's skills will take a massive leap into the future. The young master flashes a victorious smile, knowing his grand scheme worked out perfectly. During the brightly lit night of the same day, the boy thanks his secret partner for the flawless acting. Laughing it up, he hypes up that the performance this afternoon was absolutely without any flaws. Sitting in the dark courtyard, the elderly man guarantees that was his greatest forgery job, using every trick in the book. But the man grumbles that this will be the last time he uses his illegal skills, and the kid supports him, telling him to focus on his future grandkids. Sipping a bit of tea, the master of disguises analyzes the situation quite calmly. Being very direct, the gentleman asks if the boy sought him out from the start just to forge those specific manuals. With a look full of mischief, the MC warns that the old man is dead wrong. The little strategist reveals he improvised the forgery plan after the outsider showed up, leaving the man shocked by such boldness. With a light jump, the ex-vagabond drops down to the floor of the night courtyard. Radiating friendliness, the boy reaffirms that every detail of that chaos was part of his grand strategy. Curious about the red tape, the boy asks why his ally didn't just hand the martial arts directly to the head of the house. The youth argues that his dad would never believe it if an 8-year-old child showed up with the family's greatest lost treasures. Ironically, the old man disagrees, figuring the doting lord would blindly accept any crazy story from his adopted son. Changing the tone of the conversation, the MC stares at the elderly gentleman very seriously. The wind blows the bamboo leaves, breaking the heavy silence that formed between them. Full of confidence, the little master reaffirms that he was the true creator of those legendary martial arts. The master of disguises analyzes the mysterious child without showing any surprise on his face. Under the moonlight, the old craftsman justifies that he learned not to doubt bizarre things after wandering the martial world for so long. Very coldly, he hits the nail on the head, saying the boy could very well be a centuries-old monster trapped in a toddler's body. The blood drains from the reincarnated boy's face, and he starts laughing nervously, pretending it's all a big joke. Smoking calmly, the gentleman notices the kid's terrible acting and thinks about how smart that little fox is. The hero realizes his lie didn't fly, but decides to drop the subject while keeping his own mask up. Agreeing with the initial reasoning, the elderly man understands that the plan to deliver the books through a mysterious old guy was the only believable way. Being very honorable, the craftsman guarantees he won't ask unnecessary questions and swears to keep the boy's big secret forever. The words of loyalty touch the little strategist's heart, and he remains in total silence. Sealing the deal for good, the reincarnated boy claims he completely trusts his new ally's character. The elderly man praises the young master, saying his arrival was the biggest stroke of luck the Beak Manor ever had. A melancholic look takes over the ex-vagabond's childlike eyes. Staring at the lake water, the boy replies by stating that his true miracle was finding his dad. The grim memories of his past life start filling the warrior's mind. Walking through the shadows, he reflects that he would have become a major villain consumed by resentment if he hadn't been saved. Back in those hard times, the hero was just a dirty, totally lost street kid. But the kind patriarch appeared like a radiant beacon, lighting up the darkness of his painful existence. The loving father taught him all the beauty of living an honest and peaceful life. Guiding his steps, the house leader showed him the true meaning of benevolence and martial justice in practice. Feeling immense gratitude, the MC acknowledges he is only able to be a good person today because of all those valuable teachings. Understanding the boy's devotion, the old master accepts the answer with deep respect. With a light heart, the elderly man agrees that the heavens always recognize good-hearted people in the very end. Peace reigns over the vast expanse of the sunlit city. Completely shocked by the proposal, Guak lets out a shout of indignation. The partner asks if the kid wants to recruit thugs from the underworld to work at the family manor. The little master dodges a strike during training and brushes off the idea, calling it madness. Justifying his point, young HWI points out that most of those people are beyond saving, and that exceptions like him are very rare. Taking advantage of an opening in the fight, the kid lands a defensive hit, claiming the ally only became a decent man because of his beloved woman. Feeling the impact, the ex-criminal steps back offended, asking if the kid thinks he wasn't human before meeting her. Without stopping his offense, the hero keeps pressing his sparring partner and denies the insult. The ex-bandit tries to block the rapid sequence of attacks by crossing his arms, but the ex-vagabond holds his firm stance, explaining that getting lucky enough to meet a good person isn't something that happens to just anybody. Satisfied with his own train of thought, he adopts a cheerful attitude and concludes that was exactly what he meant. Boiling with irritation, the ally steps forward and pinches the boy's face, complaining he is getting more and more ill-mannered. At that, the young wife arrives in the courtyard holding a basket and scolds her husband in a very sweet way. She lets out a sweet laugh, noticing how those two are always bickering but deep down get along super well. The boy runs over relieved, calling out his sister-in-law's name, until the lord of the Beak family suddenly appears on the scene flashing a gentle smile. Seeking protection, the kid hides behind the house leader, who asks what all the commotion in the courtyard is about. The kid changes the subject while eating a piece of fruit, and brings back the serious topic of recruiting ex-gang members. Intrigued by the bold proposal, the adopted father asks to hear all the details of this plan. The scene shifts to the inside of a luxurious, brightly lit meeting room. A cup of hot tea rests on the table as an old quote about how time is valuable and easily wasted is brought up. The little strategist reinforces that the right moment is hard to grasp, and the Lord agrees with great wisdom. Adopting an analytical look, the youth points out that the manor is simultaneously going through a major crisis and a golden opportunity. He argues that the end of the gang war caused the collapse of the county's entire underworld structure. As a direct consequence of this downfall, a massive power vacuum formed in the area. The old butler joins the conversation, agreeing that this scenario turned into a perfect opportunity for the family to prosper. The imposing facade of the property is shown as a symbol of this new growth phase. However, the employee points out that the house's growing influence will naturally cause new enemies to pop up to try and block their success. With the tea poured, the logic suggests the family urgently needs to expand its size and defensive power. Full of attitude, the reincarnated boy states that the fighters who were left stranded can become a massive force if they decide to turn their lives around and join them. The patriarch and Guak listen to all that mature analysis in absolute silence. Thoughtful, the master of the house hesitates a bit about the idea. The Lord expresses genuine concern, wondering how many of those troublemakers actually want to leave their dirty lives behind. At that, the ally mentions that his former subordinates visited him recently, saying the old gang fell apart and that they wanted his help. The partner explains he couldn't offer a solution on the spot, but the boy celebrates, stating that this was exactly what he was talking about. The young master guarantees there are a lot of people secretly wanting to change their lives, and they should focus on recruiting exactly that group. He admits that naturally, some people will be rotten to the bone and impossible to save. Pointing his finger with extreme hype, the little strategist decrees that the ally will be the main guy in charge of managing and filtering that crowd. Caught totally off guard by the responsibility, Guak points at himself, confused, as he hears the order to kick out the bad guys who are beyond saving. Completely enchanted by the plan, the patriarch thinks his son's idea is wonderful for strengthening the clan and helping others. The house leader names the ex-bandit as the master of the rehabilitation pavilion, leaving the partner terrified by the official title. Exuding an aura of pure goodness that almost blinds the ally, the Lord begs him to accept the job, using his unbeatable moral pressure. Unable to refuse such a noble request, the ex-criminal yields stutteringly, while the kid gives a malicious little laugh, noticing that his dad's tactic never fails. The image of the grand manor reflects the peace of the moment, with the MC celebrating how easy it is to manipulate his ally, who yells at him to stop teasing.